gift for Dad's birthday? Click. Ooh, Janice's retirement party? Click. Outfit for my girl's wedding? Click.
With TDC Airbox, you click, we ship. Register for your free U.S. mailbox today and shop all your favorite stores online. Enjoy the convenience. Free consolidation up to £10. Competitive rates. Free package tracking account with live notifications. Free delivery and, of course, excellent customer service. Visit our website at tdcairbox.com and register today. For more information, visit our offices at the C.A. Paul Industrial Site in St. Kitts and Penny's Industrial Site in Nevis. Follow us on social media at TDC Airbox. TDC Airbox. You click, we ship. Terms and conditions apply.
At The Cable, we know being local means supporting our own, and our customers deserve the best. Our customers deserve platinum. So now, all customers of The Cable qualify for our new Platinum Loyalty Card. An elite MasterCard experience that lets you support your own like never before. Instantly send money to any Platinum Loyalty member at home or around the world. Shop online or in person anywhere MasterCard is accepted. Save with no interest and 0 annual fees. And the best part? If you're a Cable customer, you are already pre-approved. Just visit the Cable building in Basse-Terre or sign up online at www.thecable.net. Get your Platinum Loyalty Card today because you deserve platinum. Terms and conditions apply.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
Good morning, good morning, good morning to our listening audience today and viewing, I hope, via Facebook and YouTube. Good morning. This is Desi Brown. I'll be your moderator for today's Inside the News special with Alarm Clock, continuing the series of the post-COVID-19 discussions. Today, we are discussing the blue and green economies, and in our first hour, we'll be covering the blue economy. And we have our special guest with us today, Mr. Glenn Gishad. As he says, raised in Newtown. He's he's into sports fishing. I am going to have him explain what that is for us. And recently ventured into monkey catching and farming since COVID-19. And we're going to just jump right into Mr. Gishad's introduction to our listening audience. Good morning, and a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, good morning. Most people know me as Speedy, and I grew up in Newtown. Recently, I've started doing some monkey catching and farming, and it's been a bang so far.
Tell us a bit about what sport fishing is before we go into the blue economy and how it relates.
Okay, sport fishing is mostly catching fish for sport, for fun.
Okay.
Okay? We usually take out mostly tourists, and we take them along the island edges, the edges of the reef, and mostly we catch barracudas, kingfish, Spanish mackerel, mahi-mahi, wahoo, and on occasion marlin.
But how does one contact you guys to do such an activity? I didn't realize that's something that we do.
Oh yeah, there's a few people that does it, especially on Nevis. It's quite bigger on Nevis, I will say, because they have a lot more boats than we do for sport fishing. I'm on the internet actually.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, speedy4charter.com.
That's really good. Last week we discussed the white economy, which is the digital economy, and we were talking a lot about how a lot of our businesses need to get online, so that we could be able to access information and more about their services and even contract people and make payments and stuff through the online platforms, especially now. We've had this contactless society vibe going on because of COVID-19, and it's really good to see that someone of your experience is actually online and offering your services through a website. So I really like to hear that. So we're going to get into the discussion on the blue economy. And I'm just gonna give a brief idea about what the blue economy is. And we're talking about resources of the ocean, which are critical to providing jobs, feeding populations, and boosting economic prosperity. Our region has a high dependence on marine and natural resources, and as well as international trade. So, logistics. How do we get goods across the ocean or across from different countries into our country, international trade, as well as a high vulnerability as a result of natural disasters, which puts us at a huge disadvantage. We're talking about conserving marine life and oceans, creating jobs, reducing poverty and ending hunger, essentially, protecting coastal communities from impacts of climate change, and a word that will come out here today is sustainable fishing. The blue economy is definitely based on sustainable fisheries, tackling marine litter and ocean pollutions, harnessing renewable energy, taking action against illegal fishing. We might not get to everything because we have 1 hour, but we're gonna get Mr. Gishards. Well, I'm gonna call him Speedy. I get affectionately known as Speedy. I'm going to refer to him as Speedy. We're going to have a good discussion here today. So tell us more about fishing and how it relates to job creation for you and others in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Well, whether it's sport fishing or what we call regular fishing, catching pots, lines, nets, whatever, is a big source of food. And most people relate either to the land or the sea for food.
Mm-hmm.
And you just go out, you catch your fish, you come in, you sell them. So that generally is a job creation.
We know that we have like several fishing communities in St. Kitts. Could you identify a few of them? And how do they work in relation with the fisheries complex that we have, or the fisheries departments that we have in St. Kitts?
Okay, well, we have Old Road, Newtown, Date Bay, and Sandy Point. Those are the main fishing communities. You also have Connery, but to a lesser extent.
Okay.
Okay.
How do they work with the fisheries department?
Well, the fisheries have officers that go out to these areas. Each area supposed to be actively in a COP, but it has been very difficult to get the COP to function, the people to cooperate.
Do you know why this is so?
Well, fishermen are very independent people, and most of them work for themselves.
Okay.
So when you got independent people and they're working for themselves, they tend to want to listen to themselves. They don't want nobody to tell them what to do.
Okay. Is there regulation that exists in the fishing community? So if you're doing sports fishing, right? Mm-hmm. So for example, how is that area regulated? Are there things you can't do or can do or encouraged to do as in regular fishing?
Okay, for instance, now there are rules on the books that say you must fish in 2 miles away from the land. Mm-hmm. It must be 2 miles. But there's a problem enforcing most of the rules. So the regulation is there, but the enforcement part is not there.
Okay, so I've already picked up 2 things. Not being able to function in cooperatives, right? Co-ops, and also the issue of enforcing regulation. How do you think this affects the way we could move forward with fishing in the blue economy in a sustainable way?
Well, the government and the fisheries, to a lesser extent, going to have to take the lead.
Okay.
They're going to have to enforce the laws and make sure the citizens comply. It's going to be tough for the individual man who is accustomed to fishing, because that's been one of the issue. They're accustomed to be fishing in a certain areas. They call it traditional areas. And when you ask them to move from the traditional areas where they normally catch fish, you know, they're going to say, well, I'm going to go to a new area and I don't know if I'm going to get any fish. So I think there's one way to deal with that, and it's one of compensation. But I'm not sure that the powers that be is able to finance the compensation.
Okay, that's actually pretty interesting. You mentioned that persons may be asked to move from traditional areas. What are some of the factors that actually lead to the shift? Because I mean, if I am, we have a way where we want to do things the way we do it all the time. But why would the powers that be ask persons to move from areas where they know that they're able to catch really good fish to another area? How do they even identify that area as a fishing area?
Well, some of these areas are nesting sites. So you do not want to really be disturbing the nesting sites for like conch and lobster and turtles and stuff. Otherwise, if you're destroying the nesting area, you're destroying the future generation. So that's one of the reasons why they want people to move from certain areas. For instance, between the Narrows.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with the Narrows, between St. Kitts and Nevis, Booby Island, that area.
Yes.
Yeah. So they want them to move from that area, move the pots, everything. But as to now, nothing has happened.
Okay. So the nesting areas help us to keep that's an environmental. Essentially, fishing in that area is
It's
an
like your
environmental
fishing
hazard.
stocks.
Yeah. Okay.
The stocking area.
Okay. It's interesting to learn a little bit more about the fishing, the ideas and ideals around the fishing community. So how much has things changed since COVID-19? How have we been affected by COVID-19?
Well, to be honest with you, this might be a joke, but it seems like the fish got COVID too.
So are you saying that we haven't been able to catch as much fish as we could from since we've had the pandemic in our area?
Well, I think it goes with time, eh? I mean, everything have a feeding season and a laying off season. And I think COVID came around Lent time. And Lent is a traditional time where the fish don't bite as well, but after Lent, they bite better.
To explain what is fishing biting, what's that? What do you mean by that?
Okay, like the fish feed, they will eat your bait and you will catch them. Yeah, that's biting.
So you're saying that the fish go on Lent too?
Around Lent, they don't, because I think the fish is impregnated around the time.
Okay.
So they don't feed as well.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty interesting to find out. But you mentioned that we haven't been. How do you think we can be able to regroup and get things going again in the fishing industry? We haven't been. I mean, a lot of the things that I've realized across the world actually, and we've been experiencing sharks. And a lot of it has been attributed to the fact that we haven't had as much activity in our waters as we're used to, like the cruise ships and so forth. And they're not as many. And so the fish are now coming further out into our coastal lines, right? How is it that we are experiencing a lower fish quantity in a sense, but experiencing larger quantities or more visibility of sharks in our waters? Why is that? Why do you think that's happening?
Things just doesn't happen like that. It's like it's a food chain, and the smaller fish probably move away from where they usually are. So the bigger fish that eat the smaller fish also have to move away. And the bigger fish also have to move away. So now the shark got to come in closer to find whatever he could find. He's hunting more.
Okay. All right. Just for anyone listening and who would like to call and ask any questions or make any comments, the numbers to call are 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989, or 466-0989. We're also on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope. And you can ask your questions there as well to engage Mr. Gishad. And we're talking about the blue economy and what it means, what has been happening since COVID-19. How has our blue economy been affected? We're talking more specifically to the area of fisheries and marine and coastal life. And I'm going to take us to a break.
Buying your medication is easy with City Drug Store's curbside pickup. WhatsApp our certified pharmacist at 662-8769 with your requests. For prescriptions, take a clear photograph and send for review. We will engage you in dialogue and then provide a quotation and link for payment. You can then pay via TDC's online payment portal. And once the transaction is complete, you'll be notified that your pickup is ready. Yes, it's that easy. Send your WhatsApp message to 662-8769 to order your medications today with City Drug Store's curbside pickup service.
At The Cable, we know being local means supporting our own, and our customers deserve the best. Our customers deserve platinum. So now, all customers of The Cable qualify for our new Platinum Loyalty Card. An elite MasterCard experience that lets you support your own like never before. Instantly send money to any Platinum Loyalty member at home or around the world. Shop online or in person anywhere MasterCard is accepted. Save with no interest and 0 annual fees. And the best part? If you're a Cable customer, you are already pre-approved. Just visit the Cable building in Bastere or sign up online at www.thecable.net. Get your Platinum Loyalty Card today because you deserve platinum. Terms and conditions apply.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects or sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
And we're back, and it's Alarm Clock in partnership with Win Media. And before we continue the discussion, we have a caller. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning. Good morning to you and your guests.
Good morning.
Yes. Let me state the extent of my knowledge. Now, in maybe in the early 1990s, I attended a workshop put on by the OECS Fisheries Division in Barbados. That is where I first learned a lot about fishing. And then my daughter did her first degree in marine biology. So I sat in the position, right? Now, I learned something when I went to Barbados, which I did not know, which is the trawling. Because they were saying that one contributing factor to the reduction in the fish catch by the local was the existence of foreign trawlers in our waters. Now, the gentleman could let us know if it goes on. Still, it was basically the Japanese The trawlers would come and pull their long nets, you know what I mean? And so our fishermen were having a difficulty. Also, he spoke about the Easter. I learned, I had no idea that the pelagics, which are the silver fishes, they're migratory. I thought they were limited to where they are, but they tend to pass through about the same kind of a time. And I know in the old time days, it used to coincide with the crop, so that many fishermen were not there, and they used to pull a lot of nets, say nets. Now, the Southeast Peninsula, he could answer, supposed to be a reserve area, and no fishing supposed to go on in there. So what is the position in relation to the Southeast Peninsula waters? Another thing I learned from my daughter, because she did some diving for her. A lot of the reefs near the coastal area are dying because of the amount of pollution going into the sea. Because, you know, all of our drains run into the hospital water, like Limekill Bay. All the reefs are dead. So if you have dead and dying reefs, of course you'll have less fish. And what is the position in relation? One time they were trying to establish some artificial reefs. What has become of that idea? Because that might help to bring back the fish and produce hatcheries. So when you ask me about the regulation, I have seen juvenile to me, my selling down in front of the market. I reported it. According to the law, they fish in pots. The size of the wire, the space will be a certain size. But sometimes you still see juvenile fish. You know, so is there any regulation in relation to these large fishes that you all catch? Should there be no more than or no less than a certain weight? Because it grieves me to see people selling these small mahi-mahi. So maybe he could tell us, you know, other contributing factors. As I said, the reefs, because we still continue to run all of our water into the sea. What are they doing? Because maybe he might know what the fishery division doing to resurrect some of the reefs, maybe artificial reef, and the regulation, new laws were passed. He said that the supervision is lax. But I hope the person in charge of fisheries is listening. And what is the relation between the Dutch and St. Kitts? Has there been a treaty to allow our people, because the islands are so close, you go 2 miles out, you're in another man's country. So what is the position? So if you could answer those for me, and I wish him all the best.
Thank you very much, caller. That was a mouthful. I hope I was able to write down all of your questions and we can get some of them answered. She spoke to the Southeast Peninsula, the reserved area. Is there a regulation that currently speaks to the fishing in the Southeast Peninsula? Is it something that has been enforced?
Well, enforcement-wise, I'm not so sure, but like I told you before, they were trying to erect this marine reserve in the Narrows. I think that's one on the books, but like I said, enforcement is not there.
Okay, all right.
There's also this 2 mile radius around the island that you're supposed to fish 2 miles out.
You're not supposed to?
You're supposed to.
You're supposed to fish?
Yeah, from 2 miles out.
From 2 miles out?
Yes.
And beyond, so,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So we have, some information on regulation there. Now, she asked about pollution. I know earlier we mentioned that we may be talking about sustainable fishing, and she's saying that there have been some issues with reefs. Reefs are dying or dead, and there's been a talk about creating artificial reefs or erecting some of these reefs. Are you aware of some of the discussions around this issue?
Yes, well, pollution is a worldwide problem. And what we have is a lot of runoff, silt, and contaminated water that goes on the reef. We also have a lot of garbage from the drains and stuff. People go downtown, they drop this stuff in the road. They're not aware that it's not just going in the road, it's going in the ocean. I remember when I went to Belize, I saw a sign which always click in my mind: don't teach your trash to swim.
Don't teach your trash
To
to
swim.
swim.
Yes.
That's a good one.
So I will tell people, just think about that. When you drop your garbage in the street, it's gonna go out in the ocean, and it's gonna end up somewhere down on the reef or back on the shores.
And we're talking about pollution. Is littering one of the major problems as it relates to the ocean space that we live in?
Probably littering and silt runoff from the land. We're doing a lot of building, and the water, the rainwater, wash the silt down onto the reef and contaminate the reef. Prevent the reef from breathing, the corals from breathing, and the coral dies. Also, anchoring, dropping anchors in the reef. We've been doing that for years and years, and even the big ships drop their anchor in the reef.
How could we curb or address that issue of silt runoff? I know there may be other issues in the ocean related to pollution, but from our side of things, how do we address issues like that?
That is a difficult one because every time you have a development, you don't put like barriers to stop the sand from going down.
You don't, or
You don't.
Okay.
Yeah, in some areas you do. Okay, for instance, in the gut and stuff, the silt come down in the gut too,
And it goes straight
and it
into
goes
the-
straight in the ocean.
Okay. All right. And I'm seeing that as a possible issue as just as much as littering as you mentioned. I'm going to move on to another question that she asked. She was speaking to the catching of juvenile fish, our regulation related to what's the weight of the fish that you can catch? Is there a minimum and a maximum? Because she's seeing large fish, or sometimes fish that are too young at the market. How is that regulated? How do we address these issues?
Well, Miss Henry was specifically talking about mahi fish.
Okay.
This is a fish that grows very fast. If I don't know if you have been to the market and you see like these, I would say these Spanish guys, mostly, selling small mahi 3 pounds, 4 pounds, 5 pounds. That had been a concern for me too. So I also went to the fisheries and talk about it. But at the time when I went and talked to the director about it, he told me that nothing he can do because the regulations doesn't speak to it. I think since that time there has been some improvement in the regulation, but I haven't followed up.
Okay. That's something that we'll definitely be looking forward to looking into. You mentioned so you mentioned some sizes, but what is the recommended size that we should catch?
You see, there's several issues. I mean, if a fisherman goes out and he can't catch big ones, he already spent his gas, spend his time, do other thing. So he's gonna take some fish to make back his gas and his money. I would say about 10 pounds for mahi.
That's the maximum?
The minimum.
Or minimum?
Minimum. That's me speaking.
Okay.
Not the regulation. I don't know what the regulations say, but I would say about 10 pounds.
Okay. All right. And the final question that the caller had was about I'm not quite sure that you would have this information, but I'm still going to ask you the question.
It's okay.
She was asking about our relationship between the Dutch and Escan. I'm thinking she's talking about like Saba and Statia waters in relation to ours because of our close proximity. Do you know if there is any, based on my knowledge of international waters, I know for sure that there is a specific distance that qualifies you not so you can't be in certain areas. You can't go beyond because then you're now in somebody else's country, right? And if you begin to charter into somebody else's country, somewhat illegal. You need a passport now to enter and be able to carry out any activity in your waters. But tell the listeners a bit about the proximity of the islands around us and as it relates to fishing.
Well, each island have their perimeter or their space, and Statia and St. Kitts is no exception. One of the problem between St. Kitts and Statia is that it's tradition that St. Kitts people will go down in Statia and fish with no problem. That's tradition.
So
But
let's just stick up in here. You spoke earlier about the fact that we do traditional fishing. So that's one of the traditional areas as well. All right. So we have two, that the Narrows as well as the Statia St. Kitts commute. All right.
yeah, but the part of the problem is that of recent years, they have erected a marine park in Statia. So naturally, they don't want anybody to go down and fish in the parks. But I think the biggest problem is that the Dutch has shown more interest in the enforcement of Statia, not necessarily the Statia people. So the Dutch is enforcing the law. They don't care whether you're from here or there or anywhere. They enforce the law. Even in St. Martin, the same thing is happening.
Okay, so these overseas territories are enforcing.
Well, the Dutch is the mother country.
Oh,
So that's
yes,
why.
yeah. So the overseas territories are being their officials are regulating the laws as it relates to fishing. So do you think that has affected the way in which our fishing community operates in St. Kitts?
Well, naturally, I mean, I think on the Statia side of the fishing have a lot more fish, and that is why the fisherman goes there. And if they can catch enough fish on our side, they're naturally going to go over there and try and get some.
Okay.
So it definitely affected the catching.
What you mentioned earlier, right, that the fishermen having to pay for their gas and whatever other expenses to get them out. What else motivates fishermen to catch fish? And when I say motivate, I mean go above and beyond to do what they have to do to catch fish. Because now we're starting to talk about the things that they would do to not fish sustainably. So tell me a bit much more about what motivates fishermen.
Well, apart from livelihood is that you have expenses.
Okay.
And most of these have children to feed, take to school and everything. So it's just like anybody else that goes out, you go out, you do your day's work, and you do whatever it takes to accomplish the job and bring home the pay.
So we're talking about how fishing actually creates jobs, right? Pays the bills. And you mentioned earlier to me when we were off air that you did an ad on sustainable fishing. Tell me a bit about what the opportunities are for us to be able to improve that side of things.
Well, if you fish sustainable, there'll be a future for your future kids. The fisherman today might not make as much money today, but there'll be enough for his kids to make in the future.
So what kind of encouragement? You mentioned compensation earlier. What else could we do to encourage sustainable fishing? And we're talking about all of the issues that we mentioned before: catching fish at the right size, fishing in the areas that are dedicated to fishing. So tell us what else could we do to encourage them to comply, essentially?
Apart from compensation, you're going to have more meetings with them. It's kind of hard to say because it's been an ongoing thing. And they have not up to now been able to reach to no level of comfort with the fishermen to fish sustainable. I mean, the government through the department, you know, they gave them wire. They gave them wire that can release fish. You know, the wire that can rotten after time if the pot is lost. So they're doing their bits and pieces, but the fishermen, they go out, they have to make a living. So, and there's less fish stocks than before. So that driving a lot of the fishermen passion to catch more.
Okay.
I'm actually not here, you know. I'm curious to know what else what do you hear fishermen saying they want?
In recent past, they really wanted to get better boats, so they can better markets, so they can go fish farther and longer. It has been coming, but it's coming at a slow pace. But
You
it's
looking
been coming.
towards government to assist in that regard, or
Well,
what really is the expectation?
indirectly, yes, you can expect government to do everything,
True.
but the banks have been giving loans. But at the end of the day, is if you can meet the loan and the commitment and everything. So most fishermen just don't get up and buy a big boat just so. They go gradually. Because you're pretty much on your own, you know, when you take these loans.
All right, we have a caller on the line right now. Good morning, caller.
Hello?
Hi, good morning.
I'd like to make another input.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, it's me again. Let me turn on my radio. No, he made a statement, the last statement there. He would have known that they have been trying to get the fishermen to do deep sea fishing, which is what he does. But as he spoke about culture and tradition, most of our fishermen want to go out in the morning and come back in the evening. So they have not been able to break that culture. Efforts have been made. I think the Japanese and the Taiwanese even gave a boat and different things. The fisheries department has trained the people. They even went to Grenade and did, you know, the Spencers, right?
Yes, of course.
They, along with other people, were trained in using fishing aggregate, you know. But for the life of most of the fishermen, I think is a problem. Well, it might take the younger generation to be willing to sleep out at sea. Because you could give them all of the boat, all of the pots. If they still feel that if they go out in the morning, they must come back in the evening. You know, I went down to St. Lucia for a vacation. And I was asking them, you don't catch small fish here. You understand? You go down by the boats, them and look at everybody doing deep sea. So maybe he could tell me how many. And another thing, there used to be these
Sorry,
nets.
caller, how many what?
Huh?
How many what?
How many fishermen are doing deep sea fishing?
Okay.
Now he does his on a recreational basis, but I'm talking about as a regular. You understand? I know some fishermen down in Dieppe, they were doing it. So can you guarantee if you give them bigger, faster boats to go out and to stay out, that they would change the culture? 'Cause I think it's our culture hampering us. He didn't answer about this incursion into our waters. Has he ever seen them? Because people were reporting that at night they would see the lights out on the horizon. And you would have these Japanese and different boats fishing in our waters because it has a great impact on the fish stock. So ask them about the seine nets, the seine. What has happened to that? Newtown, I used to live in Newtown. Well, most of the men die now. They're supposed to say when the fishes are migrating, because I learned that they migrate. You know, you get jacks and ballyhoo and Cove Valley and all of those. What has happened to that part of fishing? Those are the questions I have. So ask me about the change in culture. All right then.
Yes, he's hearing you. Would you like to address that question first? The change in culture. So you're speaking about deep sea fishing, and if we give them the tools, because Jen was asking what it is that they need. If you give them the tools, you mentioned that they said that they want better boats. Do you think that that's going to be able to, I guess we can say, aggressively change the way in which we fish?
The change is slow coming because there's a few people that have bigger boats now, but it's not like big 50, 60 footer. It's, it's gradual. Like I said, it's gradual because the fishermen take these loans at high risk. They're not sure that they're gonna make this money, but because of their passion and the drive and the hard work, they venture every day, and by God will they make the money and pay for the boats. And boats are not cheap, When you buy a boat, you could probably build 2 houses. So the fishermen doing it on pure passion, and and their will to fish.
I want to dabble here in something you mentioned about finding better markets. How can the government facility or assist fishermen in? Okay, let me put it in a different way. Back in the day, we had something we call preferential treatment, where we would strike deals with countries and to be able to sell sugar in different parts of the world, right? And we would get preferential treatment. So we know that we're producing sugar. When the sugar is produced, they pack them in a box and they know where exactly these things are going. Is there a way that you think that the government could be able to help us to strike a deal or intervene to be able to help fishermen to find markets to put, like shore markets to put their fish in?
Well, yes, they can help, but I think most of the fish we catch here, if not all, can be sold here. Because we do import fish.
We import fish?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's about getting it say in a commercialized area and selling the fish. Getting it packaged, that kind of stuff.
What is the okay? So we're talking about packaging. I've seen fish here from different parts of the world, Panama, Jamaica as well. I lived in Jamaica and saw rainforest, and I think I've started seeing a lot of the products here. And I was wondering if it is that we are not able to supply, because you've now mentioned that we're able to supply seafood to these to different supermarkets. Let's say supermarkets, as we're gonna call commercial areas. I've noticed that Ram Supermarket would have recently have, what do you call it? They've partnered with I don't know if it's the fisheries.
Local fisheries.
Okay, with the local fisheries to be able to supply local fish. How could we get that element of packaging? Because that's the difference. I've never seen St. Kitts fish packaged the way Panama fish is packaged, or the way in which Rainforest packages their seafood products. How could we get there?
Well, I think one thing is the issue of pricing. The overseas fish is much cheaper than St. Kitts fish. Now, St. Kitts is one of the most expensive places to fish. I mean, you go to like Grenada and St. Vincent and all those places. The fish is much cheaper, $8 a pound. Lobster is like maybe $10 a pound. All them kind of prices there. Here, lobster is like $15, $16 a pound. I don't know why it's like that, but that's the way it is.
It could be, well, based on my business knowledge, it could just be the cost compared to the cost of doing it. So the operations cost is really high. I mean, everything, almost, a lot of things in St. Kitts is expensive. If they have to buy gas, oil, whatever they need to run their boats, to service their boats, to be able to feed their families, I think most people are trying to make a profit. to be able to compensate for where they don't have, because they're not going to be catching fish all year. You've already mentioned that during Lent season, the fish are not as available as they would be at any other time of the year. For sure, our cost of living here is extremely high, and it has a lot to do with quantities as well. When you fish in Jamaica or in St. Lucia, in countries that have larger populations and more sea space to be able to, so their islands are bigger, their perimeter is larger, they have a lot more opportunity to be able to, they have a lot more opportunities to be able to catch more fish, and they have more people to supply. When you're catching larger quantities in one go, as opposed to someone in St. Kitts or in Nevis catching fish at smaller quantities, the price generally would be lower, right? And they'll be able to, and then you have shore markets, so they're selling for shore to St. Kitts and Nevis. The cost is going to be low. It's generally going to be low because of the quantity in which they're selling at. So I know that could definitely be a factor, but I'm not quite getting how is it that we're okay, so in agriculture we're encouraging persons to do agro-processing. So taking raw food, regular food that we have, and changing it into something more edible, something we could put on a shelf to have a longer shelf life and so forth. But I'm not sure if any of the fisheries complex do it, but the sealing and the preservation of fish, isn't that something that we're doing now?
Not to my knowledge.
So we just sell fresh fish, so we just put it on ice and sell it as it comes, and then people just come and buy it.
Yes.
Okay, it's interesting. I think that's one of the things that we could probably look more into, because I think having that longer shelf life as well could also attribute to cost possibly being low. And I think at this time, before we continue our discussions, we'll take a break and hear from our sponsors.
At The Cable, we know being local means supporting our own, and our customers deserve the best. Our customers deserve platinum. So now, all customers of The Cable qualify for our new Platinum Loyalty Card. An elite MasterCard experience that lets you support your own like never before. Instantly send money to any Platinum Loyalty member at home or around the world. Shop online or in person anywhere MasterCard is accepted. Save with no interest and 0 annual fees. And the best part? If you're a Cable customer, you are already pre-approved. Just visit the Cable building in Bastere or sign up online at www.thecable.net. Get your Platinum Loyalty Card today, because you deserve platinum. Terms and conditions apply.
Insurance Company Limited, where you get more coverage for less.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
All right, and we're Back on Inside the News, special feature with Alarm Clock, partnering with Win Media to bring you some post-COVID-19 discussions. We've been here with Mr. Glenn Gishad, also known as Speedy, a fisherman now turned monkey catcher and a farmer since the COVID-19 experience. And we've been talking a lot about the fishing experience in St. Kitts and Nevis as it relates to the blue economy. How are we creating jobs? How are we dealing with some of the issues that exist in our marine and coastal life in St. Kitts and Nevis? The last thing I think we're going to touch today is getting deeper into the idea of deep sea fishing. Now, the caller mentioned that we have an issue with culture and tradition. We've been talking a lot about that. That's been a recurring theme in our discussions. How do we break away from culture and tradition to be able to take it to the next level? Because that's really what the idea of these discussions. How do we get from where we are now to be able to propel our economies into greater prosperity, as most of us would consider economic elevation? Deep sea fishing. How many persons are doing it? But what is required? So talk to us a little bit about that before we leave today.
Well, I think if you want to encourage people to go in that way, you're gonna have to lead them. You know, you can't just tell a man get up from a small boat and go out maybe 20, 30, 40 miles and spend 3 days in a small boat. So you're gonna have to lead the way. You're gonna have to say, okay, we're gonna give you these tools. We're gonna give you these tools, and we're gonna show you and explain and teach you how to go about doing these things. And hopefully the people will have an interest in it and move forward.
Okay, you were explaining off the air that some of the, besides the size of the boats, what's required outside of the regular fishing space. How do we get them to stay out? What do they need? What are some of the supplies that they should have to be able to survive out at sea? And how many days are they required to stay there?
Well, first of all, they must have a good-sized vessel, so they can be able to stay maybe 2-3 days. Depends on the size of the vessel. Some people stay a week, sometimes a month. You're not talking about bigger.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to need ice and supplies, bait, gear, and you do your fishing. And a lot depends on the weather too.
So essentially we're saying it has to be worth their while. Definitely. I can see why it's difficult to be able to having to move from going out in the morning and coming out in the night to having to stay a week to a month out at sea. That's a lot of uncertainty. Weather changes that we have to battle with, staying away from your family, having to feed and fend for yourself. Like, what could you possibly have out at sea that you eat? I mean, I can't possibly think of it. If I probably wouldn't even survive a night.
Hurricane food.
Hurricane food.
No, you would have fish for sure, and you bring your supplies. You have to take your supplies.
But what's the benefit, though? We're talking about how hard it is, but what's the benefit
of doing deep sea fishing?
Well, you're out there already, so you don't have to come back. So you got more fishing time, and hopefully you'll catch more fish. Nothing is guaranteed out there. So you have to fish on luck and experience and knowledge.
All right, so we're marrying the discussion about having access to shore access to markets, because you talk about probably the government or some even outside private sector institutions being able to lobby on behalf of fishermen to be able to supply their fish to varying markets. So just like we get stuff from different islands, why can't we get our fish into other islands, right? With the possibility of deep sea fishing. I think besides I think that's a form of compensation. So being able to guarantee that I am going to be able to sell this fish when I've sacrificed my time for a week to a month outside at the outside for all that time fishing. But I think we are now coming to the time to go into the news. I'll have Mr. Gishard give us a few last few words. Just give us an idea of what you'd like to see moving forward in the fishing area in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Well, it's difficult to say, really, but the fishermen have to be more conservative minded, that if they don't conserve today, they're not gonna have nothing tomorrow. You know, a lot of the stocks and the traditional stocks and the traditional grounds that you fish, there's not a lot of fish there anymore. So they have to try to find new grounds, which is always difficult, and you're talking about Faro and Faro area. But we're gonna have to come to some conservatism and move forward.
All right, guys, that was Mr. Glenn Gishard. I am Desi Brown, your moderator for today's post-COVID-19 discussions with Alarm Clock in partnership with Wind Media. And we're going straight into the news. When we come back, we'll be sitting with a few panelists from Growbox SKN, Dr. Gaffiel Alexander and Mr. Samuel Doggins on the green economy.
Found the sound. 98.9 Win FM.
We now bring you the headline news. The headline news is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, The Grange, KDP Enterprises, Carib Brewery, and Development Bank.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to American.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts, offering 24-hour nursing, therapeutic, and residential care for older adults? It's situated at Otley, 7 miles east of Vastair in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodation to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020, fax 466-8221, or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com. or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
We are faced with tough decisions every day, but choosing the right home or motor insurance shouldn't be one. You need fast claim settlement from a company that's been rooted for over 31 years. And don't forget the A Excellent rating by AM Best. Make the intelligent choice. Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Reliable insurance that you can count on. Get a quote today for your home, motor, contents, and liability insurance needs, and make the intelligent choice. Caribbean Alliance. Tomorrow secured. Local agents, Dalil Walwyn & Co. Limited. Telephone 465-2631 or 469-5303 for the Nevis office.
Everyone struggles at times. Even we too have our own struggles. Do you have a loan at the Development Bank of St. Kitts and Nevis and have fallen behind on your payments because of financial difficulties? Have your financial situation changed? If your answer is yes, visit the Development Bank of St. Kitts and Nevis or call 465-2288, extension 1101 or 469-5416 to make an appointment to discuss our debt evaluation and restructuring plan with one of our qualified officers. We are committed to working with you to make a sustained positive difference in your life.
With the Win Headline News, I am Kevon Brown. Making the headlines, Old Road United Jets gains 2 new corporate sponsors. In Barbados, Parliament approves the extension of the state of emergency. Anguilla is experiencing a community spread of the COVID-19 virus. Internationally, U.S. regulators are lifting a pause on the use of the Johnson & Johnson single-shot COVID-19 vaccine. Now, the details. The corporate partnership of the Old Road United Jets and 2 locally owned small businesses, Montrevil Farms and Clean Right, was officially launched Thursday night, April 22nd at Spratnet. Samuel Doggins, owner of Montrevil Farms, is a first-time partner partially raised in the Old Road community. He went to Vercharles High School, taught at Vercharles High School, and now back as a corporate partner for the Old Road United Jets Football Club. Doggins mentioned that he always wanted to partner with a football team.
And it's not just because of what we could do for the team in terms of winning. And that's one of the reasons I said to them, not sponsorship. Because this is not about just putting money behind a club, buying some fancy jerseys. And it's not just about winning. I taught some of these guys. In fact, I went to school with the parents of some of these guys. I went to school with some of these guys. So for me, it's all about also bringing something that could develop the community in a much greater way than just winning a football game. We got to understand that for some of these guys, this is what they dream to do. Become a professional footballer. And too often society tells people with those kind of dreams that that's not valid. You need to be a doctor, a lawyer, a career along the line of academics. But I want to say tonight, I feel proud because we have somebody like the captain of the team, Kwan, who aspires to be a professional footballer, but also has 10 subjects. So for me, this is about helping them to fulfill their dreams.
Montrevil Farms is a family-owned business based in St. Kitts, saying that it is leading a new era in cutting-edge, high-quality and efficient food technology. Clean Right, started 5 years ago, is a locally owned small business and describes itself as the leader in servicing St. Kitts and Nevis with hospitality standards in the cleaning market. Owner and general manager of Clean Right, Quasim Walker, and a resident, expressed that he thought this opportunity was an effort to give back to his community.
How do you find ways to give back, right? And not just to football, but mentorship and the different avenues that we could help the youngsters move forward. Having a positive group together with one goal in terms of winning championship, having the brotherhood.
One of the development projects within the community has been the establishment of free Wi-Fi from the Old Road Fisheries to Wingfield Road, in an effort to provide the community with an avenue to support the teams by live streaming games given the COVID-19 restrictions on audience attendance at games. President of the club, Cuthbert Keynes, expressed the club's intention to aim for the league championship.
Once again, on behalf of the now known, the Montrevil Farm Clean Right United Old Road Jets, I say thank you to one and all. I say thank you for coming on board with us as you work with us to become the winners of this year, 2020-2021 FA season. Thank you and good night.
The debut game of the club after gaining its 2 new corporate sponsors was Friday, April 23rd against Newtown. In attendance, Master of Ceremonies Leslie Sugarbowl Morton, former Ambassador Sam Conder, and Anthony Johnson, St. Kitts Nevis Football Association President. The new partners, contracted for 5 years, are joining KFC, who became a partner in 2019. Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Timothy Harris, Friday joined colleague heads of the Caribbean in a roundtable discussion on accelerating economic recovery and sustainable markets, according to a release from the Government Information Service. The roundtable was presided over by His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, and remarks came from His Excellency, the President of Rwanda, while the Right Honourable Alok Sharma gave welcoming remarks. Presentations were made by Prime Minister Harris on the sub-theme, Opportunities for Joint Action in the Lead-Up to COP21. Prime Minister Harris was supported on this topic by Prime Minister Andrew Holness of Jamaica. Prime Minister Harris used the opportunity to extend condolences to His Royal Highness on the passing of his father and commended His Royal Highness for taking time out of his busy schedule at a time of mourning to preside over the roundtable. Other topics addressed were sizing a green recovery and accelerating a sustainable transition across the decade. Private sector representatives brought perspectives from industry and investment. Chairperson of the Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority Council of Ministers, Akila Byron Nisbet. She is the first woman to sit on the Council of Ministers for the Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority. The first ever survey launched to gather information on visitors to Nevis for target marketing has been launched by the Nevis Tourism Authority. Nevis Tourism Authority CEO Ms. Jadine Yard said effective marketing is dependent on effective messaging. And to have effective messaging, the first step is knowing and understanding your target audience. This survey will assist us and our trade partners in providing the best possible vacation experience for their clients, and we encourage recipients of this communique to participate. End quote. The Nevis Tourism Authority is providing a US $100 gift certificate to a randomly selected participant. Quote, we cannot afford to guess what the potential visitor is seeking in their vacation. So at the Nevis Tourism Authority, we must do a deep dive to better understand the target audience, Ms. Yard said at the launch of the initiative. Recipients of the survey must submit their responses by May 4th, 2021 for a chance to win the gift certificate. In Barbados, Parliament approves the extension of the state of emergency. Barbados Today has the story.
Parliament today gave the green light for the state of emergency to be extended until September 25, but not before Opposition Leader Bishop Joseph Atherley again raised concerns that too much power was in the hands of the Prime Minister under the Emergency Powers Act.
When we extend these orders, next 5 and next 6 months, what in effect we are doing, Mr. Speaker, in my view, is extending a period under which Barbados is governed by prime ministerial edict. Now, there are those who may not like that language, but that is the reality. Country is right now governed by prime ministerial edict, so long as this state of emergency continues to be declared, and so long as these proclamations are issued and these orders are derived. Country is governed by prime ministerial edict. And I do not know that that is the best situation for Barbados. I do not know that we want to prolong beyond that which is necessary, absolutely necessary, a situation where Barbados is governed by prime ministerial edict.
But Health and Wellness Minister Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic says the emergency powers legislation is critical to the government's fight against COVID-19. He says while cases are on the decline, legislation remains key to the government's efforts to control the spread of the virus.
Even though things are improving at this point in time, we still have to plan ahead. We still have to look forward. We still have to be in a position to worst case this if something else happens, if there's another surge, that we are ready in all aspects of our operations, with the facilities, with the skill levels, with the communications, all of those things that we, over the last several months, at one point in time or another, we struggled with some of them. Let us be clear. We didn't always get it right. We didn't always have all of the resources to do what we wanted to do, but we had to manage with what we had. And we want to ensure that in the coming months, and especially once people start to fly again and even to sail, that this country is in a far better position, a far better state of readiness to be able to respond to any eventuality. And the extension of the emergency powers will help to facilitate our desire to have that situation.
Meanwhile, Attorney General Dale Marshall says the government must operate in the best interests of citizens.
Is it preferable for us to open up and allow a full slate of freedoms and activity, which increases our risk of COVID spread increasing? Or is it better in the interest of the long-term safety of all Barbadians to keep those restrictions in place? And as I said, having done those consultations, we consider it is important to keep those restrictions in place.
Anguilla is experiencing community spread of the COVID-19 virus. The Premier addressed the nation on Friday.
This is Dr. Ellis Lorenzo Webster, Premier and Minister of Health. As of 3 p.m. today, April 23rd, a total of 28 persons linked to the cluster of COVID-19 cases identified on April 21st have tested positive out of a total of 180 persons tested. This consists of 25 adults and 3 children, including a 7-month-old infant who has been hospitalized. At this time, no other persons have been hospitalized, though several are symptomatic with fever, cough, and flu-like symptoms. All cases are under isolation. The exposure settings have been identified and contact tracing and surveillance are ongoing. Based on the ongoing public health investigations, illegal re-entry into Anguilla has emerged as the most probable source of introduction of the virus linked to this cluster. The ministry encourages persons who feel they may have been exposed to COVID-19 to contact the COVID-19 hotlines before presenting to any health facility or the ministry. The developments of the last couple of days are the most compelling evidence of the ongoing and significant threat of COVID-19. At the present time, vaccination against this virus is our best tool to protect our population, achieve immunity, and place the island on a sound development footing going forward. The Ministry of Health is once again appealing to all eligible persons to get vaccinated as soon as possible. All COVID-19 vaccinations are now being done at the Anguilla Football Association Stadium Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. The Ministry of Health also urges the general public to comply with the public health measures that came into effect at 23:59 or 11:59 p.m. on April 22nd in order to contain any further spread of the virus.
Saturday morning, Anguilla's Chief Medical Officer provided an update on the situation.
I'm Dr. Aisha Andrin, Chief Medical Officer. Since yesterday's press release, which was current up to 3 p.m., we had an additional 9 positive cases confirmed. Thus far, all individuals in the cluster and the primary or secondary contacts of cases. So that brings us to 37 positive cases up to this morning. the contact tracing and the surveillance are ongoing, so that number is expected to change, and so on. So conversely, from yesterday's press release, the 7-month-old baby was not hospitalized in the end. So the decision was made to treat on an outpatient basis, so that's good news. So the baby was able to go home. Additionally, looking at, somebody asked the question, how many of these persons were vaccinated compared to those who were not vaccinated among the positives versus the negatives? Let me just state that in terms of looking at complete vaccination, no persons were fully vaccinated in the sense of having had both doses and then the 3 weeks subsequent to that to consider yourself fully vaccinated. However, that said, up to yesterday's screening of 180 persons, of those persons, 106 of those who tested negative had had at least one dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine. 24 of those had had the second dose as well. That's compared to, out of the 37 positive cases up to yesterday, 5 of them had had one dose, and only 2 of them had had 2 doses.
We now bring you these international reports.
After an 11-day pause to evaluate rare but serious side effects, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Food and Drug Administration will allow the use of Johnson & Johnson's one-dose COVID-19 vaccine to resume. An expert panel voted 10-4 to recommend resumption of the vaccinations without restriction for everyone aged 18 and over.
With these actions, the administration of Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine can resume immediately. That said, FDA will add more details to the healthcare provider and patient fact sheet, including information about the risk that events have occurred in a very small number of people who have received the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine.
Out of nearly 8 million people who received the vaccine, 15 developed blood clots and low blood platelets after their shot. Several became seriously ill and 3 died. All were women. But the expert advisory panel and health officials concluded the benefits of the vaccine outweighed the risks and that new guidance for doctors could help mitigate any damage.
We found that for every 1 million doses of this vaccine, the J&J vaccine could prevent over 650 hospitalizations and 12 deaths among women aged 18 to 49. And this vaccine could prevent over 4,700 hospitalizations and nearly 600 deaths among women over 50.
Unlike the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, Johnson & Johnson's version doesn't require a second dose, and it can be transported without deep freeze storage.
The J&J is an important vaccine offering key advantages, including its single dose option and its viability when the supply chain may not allow for freezers.
Health officials say administering Johnson & Johnson's vaccine will resume almost immediately, likely as soon as Saturday. Rob Reynolds, Al Jazeera, Los Angeles.
Joe Biden's first overseas trip as US president will be to the UK for the G7 summit in Cornwall in June. That'll be followed by a NATO summit in Brussels as he seeks to reassert America's global leadership amid rising tensions with China and Russia. In recent weeks, both have escalated military activity around Taiwan and Ukraine, respectively. Our World Affairs editor John Simpson has this assessment of the challenge facing the US president.
On Russia's border with Ukraine, confrontation suddenly turns into open warfare. But does Russia really intend to invade, given that Ukraine has the backing of America and Europe? 5,000 miles away, a Chinese Air Force video shows their jets racing across the sea near Taiwan, the island which broke away from Communist China in 1949. The question is, will China actually invade? What links Russia's moves on Ukraine and China's moves on Taiwan? It's this man, Joe Biden is hugely experienced in foreign affairs, but America isn't any longer the power it once was.
The Kremlin is very clearly trying to test the new U.S. administration. The massive buildup in Ukraine's east, this is very much for the Biden administration. Putin made that very clear in his annual speech that he delivered to the Russian people earlier this week, where he said there would be severe consequences for any Western power that crosses so-called red lines.
There are worrying possibilities. The leading Russian dissident, Alexei Navalny, recently sentenced to 2.5 years jail, has announced he's stopping his hunger strike, but he's still very ill. Supposing he dies. The way Vladimir Putin's opponents have been murdered has been strongly attacked by President Biden, for instance last month on ABC News.
So you know Vladimir Putin, you think he's a killer? Mm-hmm, I do.
Nowadays, Russia and China, though they do have their differences, are combining to show up America's weakness, with China's President Xi Jinping as senior partner. That's what the crises in Ukraine and Taiwan are all about. Rana Mitter is Professor of Chinese Politics at Oxford University.
I think a war between the United States and China in the region is extremely unlikely. Some people have started using the expression not Cold War, but hot peace to describe what's going on. And I think that's rather good, because I think that there will be lots of blow-ups in the region in terms of rhetoric and even confrontations that come near to becoming problematic.
Hot peace is a useful description. Sometimes, as we've just been seeing over climate change, it suits America, Russia and China to cooperate. But mostly, we can expect a lot more confrontation to come. John Simpson, BBC News.
This is where the impact of the Netherlands' third wave of COVID-19 becomes visible. Inside hospitals, medical workers are trying to save patients, mostly in their 50s and younger.
Patients are really scared because they have seen for a whole year what COVID can do to people, and that's frightening them and us as well.
Heel angstig voor de patiënten en voor de verpleegkundigen ook.
Operations are being cancelled and the recovery room is now filled with coronavirus patients on ventilators. Doctors and nurses are exhausted.
We have long been stretched to the limit, but we can't give up. We have to continue. Patients continue to come. From 24 ICU beds, we now have 39. We simply can't say we will quit.
Outside, it feels like a different world. The government is easing some restrictions and is testing more ways to make crowded events safe. One was planned near the hospital to celebrate the King's Day holiday, but was cancelled after an outcry.
While many in the Netherlands believe that the worst of the pandemic is over, this is the reality in many hospitals at the moment. Doctors are warning that the intensive care units are approaching a so-called code black, when all beds are full and difficult decisions will have to be made who will be treated and who won't.
Amphia Hospital is ready for this worst-case scenario, but says delaying reopening the economy would help prevent it.
We're balancing on a real thin cord. We are managing at this moment the situation, but when the opening leads to more and more patients, we are getting a situation black.
The Dutch government has been criticized for its response since the pandemic began. Documents show at one stage it pursued herd immunity by letting the virus spread, and it was slow to begin vaccinations.
My main concern is that from the offset this government chose a strategy that does not protect most of us, but is willing to sacrifice most of us, and they do so. They said they did so because of economic reasons, but we are now seeing that none of the reasons, also not the economical reasons, are valid. We have people dying, we have hospitals who just simply can't deal with the amount of patients anymore, and I really don't think that this is a time to go easy on the restrictions.
Prime Minister Rutte for Al Jazeera.
Hello.
Now the easing of rules from April 28 has medical staff worrying that their worst fears could become a reality. Step Vassen, Al Jazeera.
You were listening to the Win FM Headline News on 98.9. Our top stories were: Old Road United Jets gains 2 new corporate sponsors. In Barbados, Parliament approves the extension of the state of emergency. Anguilla is experiencing a community spread of the COVID-19 virus. Internationally, U.S. regulators are lifting a pause on the use of the Johnson & Johnson single-shot COVID-19 vaccine. Thank you for listening.
That was the Win FM Headline News. The Win FM Headline News was brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, The Grange, KDP Enterprises, Carib Brewery, and Development Bank.
Everyone struggles at times. Even we too have our own struggles. Do you have a loan at the Development Bank of St. Kitts and Nevis and have fallen behind on your payments because of financial difficulties? Have your financial situation changed? If your answer is yes, visit the Development Bank of St. Kitts and Nevis or call 465-2288, extension 1101 or 469-5416 to make an appointment to discuss our debt evaluation and restructuring plan with one of our qualified officers. We are committed to working with you to make a sustained positive difference in your life.
We are faced with tough decisions every day, but choosing the right home or motor insurance shouldn't be one. You need fast claim settlement from a company that's been rooted for over 31 years. And don't forget the A Excellent rating by AM Best. Make the intelligent choice. Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Reliable insurance that you can count on. Get a quote today for your home, motor, contents, and liability insurance needs, and make the intelligent choice. Caribbean Alliance. Tomorrow secured. Local agents, Dalil Walwyn & Co. Limited. Telephone 465-2631 or 469-5303 for the Nevis office.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts, offering 24-hour nursing, therapeutic, and residential care for older adults? It's situated at Otley, 7 miles east of Vastair in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodation to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020, fax 466-8221, or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com, or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
People make the world go
Enjoy the green life with TDC Home and Building Depots. Purchase select eco-friendly products and get 20% in savings. Celebrate Earth Week with us from the 19th through the 24th. Shop in store with your green bag or online and get even more green savings. This April, live green. Think TDC Home and Building Depots. Terms and conditions apply. Offer good while stocks last. See stores for details.
At The Cable, we know being local means supporting our own, and our customers deserve the best. Our customers deserve platinum. So now, all customers of The Cable qualify for our new Platinum Loyalty Card. An elite MasterCard experience that lets you support your own like never before. Instantly send money to any Platinum Loyalty member at home or around the world. Shop online or in person anywhere MasterCard is accepted. Save with no interest and 0 annual fees. And the best part? If you're a Cable customer, you are already pre-approved. Just visit the Cable building in Bastere or sign up online at www.thecable.net. Get your Platinum Loyalty Card today because you deserve platinum. Terms and conditions apply.
People make the world go
Good afternoon to our listening audience, and welcome back to this edition of Inside the News, our special edition with Alarm Clock in partnership with Win Media. We're having a discussion, we're talking post-COVID-19, and we're looking at economies. This morning we talked to Mr. Glenn Gishard on the blue economy, and this afternoon, for the next hour and a half, we'll be looking at the green economy with Mr. Samuel Doggins, Mr. Zen Hector of Growbox, and Miss Dr. I'm not going to say Mr. Dr. Garfield Alexander. And before we get into any discussion, we're going to go around the table and have them introduce themselves, starting with Samuel.
Well, good day, Radio Land. It is now afternoon. Pleasant afternoon to you. My name is Samuel Doggins, and I'm here today representing Montrevil Farms, and I'm looking forward to this discussion that we're about to have this afternoon. Yes.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Zen Hector, also known as Zen from Le Mega Wellness Group of Companies on behalf of GoBox here today.
And Garfield Alexander, and I'm here representing all green consumers.
All right, thank you guys so much. So we're gonna be talking about the green economy. So I'm actually gonna pull a definition about what it essentially stands for. It may have too many big words, so I'll try to break it down after. But the World Resource Institute actually defines the green economy as an alternative vision for growth and development. So we're looking at everything agriculture, in a sense, today in that area of the green economy. And we're going to be talking about how it could generate growth and improvements in people's lives in ways consistent with sustainable development. What are we doing now to preserve our children's future and our children's future? And a green economy essentially promotes not just sustaining and advancing economic activity, but also the environment and social well-being. Very, very important, social well-being. So I'm going to let's start with Zen. Yes. I'm not going to put Samuel on the he's right across from me. So I'll try not to do that. Let's start with Zen. We're gonna be looking at what the green economy looked like before COVID-19. How was your business functioning? Tell us a bit about Growbox, and how was it functioning before COVID-19?
Growbox actually wasn't functioning before COVID-19. There we go. Mic check.
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. So GoBox wasn't actually functioning before COVID-19. It was actually a thought, just a simple business idea that we had.
Okay.
COVID-19 essentially fast-tracked back business idea, just like many other businesses that was out there already. Essentially, what it is just a simply fresh produce and artisanal product delivery business. So essentially, you order online and then we have it delivered directly to your door. Produce that comes fresh from your farms, like Montrevil Farms. We work with a number of different farmers on the island to get the produce delivered directly to most people's doors.
Okay, you said simple, but I don't think that's, don't want you to discount what you're doing at all.
In theory, it's a simple process, but it does take a lot of work on the back end. But in theory, it's a very simple process from farm to table. That's as simple as we could get.
So essentially, COVID-19 created an opportunity for you to be able to fast track an idea.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me a bit about that before we go on to Samuel.
During COVID-19, we realized that, especially in terms of like going to the grocery store when we wasn't able to go to the grocery store, we realized that it was highly important to control your food supply. Not just for my family, but for everybody in general, in a sense. Having control over your food supply is very important. Well, very important to me and my family in the sense where we started GrowBox. We realized we just needed to take control of that. 1. 2. Eating the highest quality food that you could possibly get was also important to us because you could eat food, but then you could also eat high quality food, and there's a complete difference in that setup.
That's going to be a major underlying part of our discussion today. All right, so Samuel, tell us a bit about what your business, what were you doing before COVID-19? How were you doing?
Well, at Montrevil Farms before COVID-19, we were in, we started in 2017. So we spent a couple months, I would say just over a year, in the development phase, growing phase, and then we started out as a business-to-business farm. So we generally supplied the hotels, restaurants, and persons that then provided meals for the wider public. And that was doing very well. COVID-19, of course, disrupted the entire industry. And then we had to find new solutions. And one of those solutions, again, fast-tracking an idea that we had, was going more domestic. So it was interesting because we spent the first 3 years of our existence almost not recognized by the public. Most people didn't even know we exist because we went direct to larger suppliers. And then having to diversify in the midst of the COVID pandemic, we started a lot more supermarkets and direct packaging for households and direct delivery. And again, one of the options that came up was a partnership or the supply to GrowBox and others like that. And we did that. So right now we are in almost every supermarket on island, almost.
That's
chain.
Amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So we have a trend here that we've become a little bit more direct.
Yes.
In the way we conduct businesses. Because I've actually had that same experience where I didn't notice you were doing what you were doing until it started coming into my space. So I mean, you even have popsicle people making mojito popsicles with your mints, right?
Correct.
And I'm like, look at that. Why didn't we think of that before? Why weren't we doing that? It had to come to our doorstep for us to be able to even think about the quality of the things that we're growing here and how we can use them in many different ways. I thought that to be pretty commendable, that shift in being able to adapt considering the new climate. So let's talk about the green economy, not just in relation to your businesses, but in St. Kitts and Nevis. How do you think you guys contribute to the development of the green economy?
I'll go first. That's okay.
Opening batsman, you know.
When it comes to supporting the agriculture industry and the economy here on a whole, if you look at it in its entirety, a lot of the farms here, they operate on massive acres of land, doing things by soil. That could be improved in the sense that there's a lot of modern technologies that can be in place to facilitate that help. How GrowBox is, helping the industry in that sense is that we partner directly with the farmers themselves. So we go directly to the farms. We get, and yes, it's a boost for some farmers, but when we're looking about the future of the agriculture industry, it's only a boost for now. The way in which I personally think the way in which we farming and using land right now, it's not gonna last for too long because the younger generation is not taking on that style of farming anymore. So it's almost like watching a whole generation industry just pass, just disappear.
I think this is where I'm gonna get Samuel to chime in on
exactly.
modern technologies in agriculture. Tell us a bit about what you're doing and how you're contributing to that growth.
Well, when we started Montrevil Farms, the whole idea was to somehow assess the challenges that the country faced in agriculture, and there were numerous challenges. One, and before I get into that, let me also add the outlook, because one of the outlooks from the onset was to position the country to start feeding the region. And in that outlook, we recognized that the amount of land available and the accessibility to it would be a problem. Mm-hmm. Water supply would be a problem. And then we have our friends, the monkeys. Huge problem. And then you had a cultural shift away from the sugar industry and people just not wanting to be associated with anything to do with agriculture. So we had a number of problems that we had to rectify. And our operation went to addressing those problems directly. So one of the ideas that we settled on was the introduction of hydroponics and shade house farming. And that really kind of positioned us to, one, use a lot less land to produce high quality produce consistently. Two, the shade houses provided protection against the monkeys. And also when you look at our temperatures, working all day in the hot sun is not fun. It's not fun.
we have a culprit in here calling it bougie farming.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
It's working.
So for me, you think about all of that. And one of the things that I like, and personally I've made a commitment to myself, that when I'm stepping into a room, I'm stepping in as me. And if you know me, I'm not one who wants to be in raggedy clothes all day and all. And that's, I made no qualms in saying that. And I'm not going to go into something that's going to be against who I am. Mm-hmm. So farming hydroponically allows me to go to work and step out of the farm and go into a corporate meeting the same way I was on the farm. Mm-hmm. And I'm happy to do that. So I run my day in and out of corporate meetings and farming, and people are none the wiser where I was before I came into the meeting. Because, some days you get dirty, yes, but those are the few days in between. But most days I go to farm and then I go to corporate meetings.
We've taken a shift. We're coming to Dr. Garfield just now.
I could actually chime in here.
Oh, great.
It's pretty interesting what the guys have been saying. And Samuel kind of touched on something that's dear to me, which is just human beings and the cultural aspect of this and our disdain for agriculture, which we have to be transparent in saying. So and that's just not from the sky or because we fear farming. It's because, at least for me who was born in the 70s, we grew up our parents wanting better for us. Because we were a part of the sugar belt, we were a part of sugar production, and this sugar production, we have to look at how deeply racist and it was, in that you were basically getting a plant from overseas, growing it with the technologies from overseas, using all the machinery to process it from overseas, sending it overseas, and then buying it back at 10 times the price. Mm-hmm. So there was no benefit apart from a monetary benefit, which was minimal, and it was working our people down to the bone. Like the majority of persons were working in the sugar industry and not seeing a good future from it. So our parents wanting better for us, as most parents do, kept, even some who knew you would end up in the industry and wouldn't speak ill of it, you could see it. You could see them laboring to get up. You could see them suffering. So no child growing up in my era really wanted to go into agriculture. And the only agriculture we know was farming, the sugar industry. So you would hear a person saying, if you don't learn your lesson in school, then you're going to cut cane. So that's it for us. Cutting cane is us in terms of agriculture.
Yeah.
And again, our education system doesn't heighten the role of the farmer. The fishermen were in before the same way. So for me, it's the 5 T's: tradition, tools, trends, tragedies, and traits. And one of the traits is that there are persons who are genetically engineered to be farmers, in that they are more naturalists. They have a good concept of space and timing, and they're the ones that feel great after they've seen a row of stuff planted. All of us are not wired like that. So some of us will approach it from a purely business and get into agriculture because it's profitable, but there are persons who are naturally, that's a trait of theirs. You know, their personality, the way they interact with their environment works well with farming, the same as a fisherman. Because I don't know if any of you have ever went out with one of our local fishermen on one of those handmade boats. Because I heard Sylvine calling and talk about guys, but so a big part of it, and it comes in here even with farming and fishing, the traditions. These are traditions that are passed on. They're not taught in school. Because our education system puts certain types of intelligence on a pedestal and then demeans the rest. So for you to be a good farmer, for you to be naturally inclined to farming, you're already portraying certain types of intelligence. The same as a fisherman, you're already brave. You know about space. You don't mind being off land for hours. You know, there's certain entities, so that farms into traits. And there's the tragedies. All these farming has the tragedy of that racist past. Fishing has a tragedy of losing so many people via water, and we're not taught a culture of embracing the sea, even though we're surrounded by it. We lack the tools. There's certain trends, because COVID has brought on a trend now that if you're a farmer and you're not good at selling, if you don't have transport, then you can't do like Samuel and go box and change and adapt. So you don't possess the tools, and the trends are overwhelming. And then we already spoke of tradition. So if our education system, if we as a family, as a community don't embrace and highlight the persons like farmers and fishermen, all we're doing is in vain. All we're doing is in vain, because what we're going to have to do, like what's happening now, that most of our fishermen are from Ghana. Most of our fishermen have come in from somewhere else. And at nights, we have people encroaching on our seas and robbing our seas. Why am I, in the 5th decade of my life, understanding that underwater plants, and even some of the ones that are microscopic, produce more oxygen than all the rainforest? Like, why am I learning that now? That's it for now.
That was a mouthful. There's some themes coming out here for me: partnership, new technologies, and education. Right? Gian, what's that? Did you say? Adapting. Correct. Because we're definitely talking about adapting, because we want to know how we can move forward. I am liking the underlying themes, right? One of the things that, again, we mentioned, the green economy creates jobs. And considering now that we could see how we could farm sustainably using new technologies, because a lot of people we're still battling with culture and tradition. Like, it's just about wanting to do things how our parents and our grandparents did it, as opposed to actually trying to innovate ways in which we could go to the farm, step out of the farm, and go to a corporate meeting. Like, it should not be exclusive. Farming should not be exclusive. It should be, allow me to get around and do all the other things that I need to do without having to go home, take a shower, come back out, go to a meeting, go back home, change into my dirty clothes again, and that makes it sound attractive, right? And that's where the education part comes in. How we are packaging agriculture now should be different to how, because we're capable of producing high quality and at high quantities with much more modern technologies. And that's very, very attractive when we talk about agriculture today. Now, we're going to talk about moving forward. So we've mentioned all of these things. The highlights and accomplishments are well, I don't think we're accomplishing much in education as it relates to agriculture, because the numbers at the college are still very low. I think they've recently had they started Cape Agriculture.
Yes.
At the safe. I'm not sure if you've had any encounters with them before. Have you?
Not directly at the school, but I've had past students who work for me.
Okay.
Yes.
Come in and
Yes.
do you think that the knowledge base could be transferred? What they're teaching could be transferred? Is it transferable, or are you still having to do a lot of on-the-job training to be able to help them to understand these new technologies?
Well, what I would say is, and I was listening to what you were talking about with moving away or trying to be what our parents were, and that's a problem and a benefit, and trying to move away from it, there are also problems and benefits too.
Okay.
And the truth is, and Garfield touched on it, farming takes a certain personality to do it well.
Okay.
You have to understand and respect time. Because when a plant says 6 weeks to maturity, it's 6 weeks to maturity. No matter how fast the market wants it. So at the end of the day, you must be able to understand that, project that, to be consistent. So there's some things you must appreciate that tradition will teach you. But then tradition has its limitations too.
Yeah.
And for some of the students, they learn academically, but then there's some technical and underlying skills that must be learned in the practical on-site sense. So they do come with some knowledge, but I think there's a lot that's still missing, yes.
From the programs.
Yes.
I'm noting that as a thing that we need to look more into, because I've generally found that a lot of persons, you learn knowledge in school, but there are things you can't learn in school, right? And they can't teach you everything.
Correct.
But there definitely needs to be a more inclusive or practical aspect to training in schools that could help to be able to transfer skills and knowledge to be able to create greater value for the space that we're going into. So that's definitely something I'd like us to look into, especially as it relates to the green economy and how we could develop sustainably and be able to really reap the benefits from what a green economy could bring to a country with so much land and opportunities for farming and these things. Let's look at the strengths, the opportunities that exist for moving into new economies. Let's look at we've spoken about the development part, but how could we grow? What opportunities in our space do we have to be able to advance agriculture? What new products? Because I have here, we're gonna touch a bit on the new economic pathways. What are those opportunities that you guys think exist?
Do you want to start with me, or?
You can start this time.
You see why I was concerned about starting, because maybe it's a good platform, but the truth is this: there's no crop, absolutely none, that we grow 100% of our consumption at. None, absolutely none. In fact, our domestic production on paper is around 15%. In 15%.
Wait, I want you to repeat that.
Our domestic production on
Someone,
paper.
could you please start from the beginning? Yeah. That one can take some time for people to accept. So start from the very beginning. No, it's 15.
No.
It's mind-boggling.
So there is absolutely no crop that we consume that we are close to national consumption on, in terms of producing it.
Right.
And our overall domestic production is only on paper 15% of what we consume. In reality, it's really less than 10%.
Right.
So then it means there's room for 90 or more % growth domestically. And we are minutes away from St. Martin, Antigua, and Anguilla, who all consume much more than we do. So when we talk about the potential for growth, that platform is extremely wide.
So that silence room, because all the time we love to drive and fumes. Like we do a lot of talk shop, but when it comes down to it, we're missing the ball. We're absolutely missing the ball. We're not going. Even the persons who come on the radio and talk about going and talk about this, we're really not going. We're consuming a whole lot. And most of it is imported.
Yeah.
Because there are other demands, and it's just not a matter of I want tomatoes. Tomatoes could be grown locally. I want a certain type of tomatoes. I want cherry tomatoes.
Correct.
I want a certain type of tomatoes that's from a salad. People still crave the indulgence of having variety and having something that they think is top quality, even if it isn't.
And just to wrap up what I'm saying in a bit too, so a point Garfield was just making, we're consumers. Nationally, our annual import budget for food is around $130 million.
Monies we're not tapping into.
At all.
Okay, so guys, I am. What's the biggest word I could use to say what feels so people not being dramatic, right? I'm not being dramatic. I am just really flabbergasted. That's exactly what I'm going to say. I'm flabbergasted, mainly because we do have this topic to table, which is the import bill, right? So when we talk about opportunities, we're talking about the fact that we have so much more space, we have so much more things that we can do, so many more things that we can do to be able to grow our green economy. Because if we're not, why is it that a country with a 50,000 person population is not able to feed itself with so much land space available? Maybe because it could be attributed to interest, because I know a lot of our economies, a lot of our subsectors are very small because we don't have as many skilled or interested people, right? I don't know if it is that we've been pushing STEM, but there are a lot of things at home that we could build on to be able to reduce things like our food import bill. Like $130 million. How could we take some of that money and reinvest it and give it to people to start their own sustainable farms, right? To be able to produce different, create a competitive advantage, because you don't want everybody to be producing mint lettuce and all the nice things that you do. We don't want everybody to be doing a grow box, right? Because there are other areas that we can focus on. How could we do it? Why aren't we doing it? I'm really flabbergasted, guys. I am.
Well, I just have two interventions seen that Samuel silenced the room twice. One, with a heavy import bill, I don't want us to act out within a vacuum. Mm-hmm. It means that there's somebody very much profiting from that fact.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
And that entity or those entities like it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And
correct.
Survive on one word. Convenience.
Yes, that's true.
And we have whole departments, whole teams of persons and personnel that we pay to mitigate that and to come up with solutions for that.
So guys,
it doesn't make sense we have this conversation if you're not going. That's why I don't come on radio.
I just snap my fingers at this. That's why we're here, guys. That's why we're here. We're here to get the issues out and get the solutions and all of these things and all these things. But I mean, that's an issue that we really need to look into, because we spoke about this morning how we need to find markets for our fishermen, and it's the same thing for agriculture. If we could find or give people some sort of comfort. I mean, business doesn't come with comfort, guys. Let's put that out there, because I've recently made a post saying that entrepreneurship is one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever done in my life. Like it is glamorized, but it is whoo. We can't even get into that today. But it is topic. Yeah, right? Everybody does not have the affinity or the strength or the desire to want to do their own thing, right? But we could put structures in place to assist people to be able to not want to do their own thing, but kind of set it up in a way that they know, or they can feel like they're accomplishing something, to feel like they're getting their items out there, right? But it really comes with, there's a lot of work to do at home. You guys have me feeling, oh.
No, man, there's ways, man, there's ways. Because we could see some of the barriers, you know. For example, you spoke of entrepreneurship and how everybody's not geared towards it. That in itself eliminates a great majority in our population.
Yes.
But then when you look at nearly all developing nations, ours included, like the high interest rates at banks, and for you to get a loan, if you that's the first step in starting a business, or even streamlining or improving your business. You have to get a loan unless you were born into wealth. So with that barrier already being there, nothing there to offset it, or no institutions being developed to reduce those interest rates, then we already now eliminating a lot of persons who have the will, who have the passion to start businesses in areas that they're passionate about, but can't. Because the risk is just too great. And when we look around at the TDCs and the hospitals, they're avoiding risk. So why wouldn't I avoid risk? They're going to the cushy investments and the ones that they know are sure. Real estate and certain other things, and expanding their existing businesses. So how does the entrepreneur get into that market if it's a shark-filled tank?
I think that's where the entrepreneur now becomes creative, in a sense. Because there's a lot of barriers to starting small businesses on the island. But in the sense, if I'm an entrepreneur and I have the will and I want to do something, and all my I's are dotted and all my T's are crossed, but the only thing stopping me is maybe say a bank loan. Then now it's on me to think about other ways I could get this done without a bank loan. For instance, Go Back started with basically not even a bank loan. It started by word of mouth, actually. Started by word of mouth. Our first products went out, and we didn't need to get a loan. We didn't need to. We just got creative. We just got creative of how we're gonna start this business with minimal. That's it. And I think it's important to like even having infrastructures where you could teach people, like entrepreneur class in schools, where they could teach people how you could start business. Because a lot of people don't know you could start a business without money.
Yeah.
You could start a business in thin air. This is the year of the internet. We could sit down here right now and start a business. All we need is some internet connection, a few phones, and we're good. We could start a business right here, right now. So there's a lot of different ways that we could tap into, and I think it's just so more opening more people to those kind of options instead of minute you hit a roadblock, you stop. No, there's a lot more to go, and I guess that stems from being an entrepreneur is really hard.
I mean, it does. Go ahead.
Well, I was about to say I am reluctant to get into this part of it because I think it may end up changing the entire discussion, right? The truth is, entrepreneurs are born in moments of adversity, right? And one of the things I think that we could do is teach people to understand money. And
financial literacy, I'm a
yes,
big advocate for
that. When I say that, I mean like really understand what money is, like from the root and the usage and how it works. Because I sat on a committee and we were discussing minimum wage. And mind you, I believe that we should aspire to raise that level. However, when that discussion is just about raising the minimum wage and not addressing an issue, I have an issue with that. And one of the things that I brought to the table then was, how is it we have the highest minimum wage in the OECS region? And I think Dominica has the lowest, but they survive and we survive. They live, we live. What are they doing different to survive on almost half of what we earn? And nobody can answer that.
I could just say the cost of, the cost of living in St. Kitts and Nevis is extremely high.
But then
extremely high compared to the other islands.
And that's why I said I was kind of reluctant because it's a whole discussion. I went to Dominica and I was surprised with the way they live, and that amazement, like, it really, really floored me because in Dominica when I was there, I recognized we left home on a Sunday afternoon and visited about 6 families. And by the time we got back, we had a whole grocery shopping and never went to a supermarket. Bunches of bananas, basket of oranges and grapefruits. like ground provision, like a whole grocery
That's
shopping.
my experience in St. Lucia.
So then they don't need to go to the supermarket,
Yeah,
right?
because they grow everything.
There you go. So, and no money was spent.
Yeah.
But part of that is historical too, because when I was growing up, I know one of the things, and when I was growing up, there was much less inter-island travel, and a whole set of stereotypes. Well, much more stereotypes. So I remember people saying, like, you know, like, no, and at that time nobody was really interested. People would travel only for business, or if a family, you have to return to Dominica. But person would say, like, don't go to Dominica because Dominica is the only place Columbus would still recognize if he comes back. But my first experience with Dominica was not Dominica, but Dominicans. And I remember somebody mentioned Lucians, and they were inherently different to, like, to St. Lucians.
Mm-hmm.
And the Windward Islands were inherently different to us up here in the Eastern Caribbean. They were less Americanized. They were more into what they were into. There was just much more pride, more national pride. And that's because, again, going back to the history, sugar was eradicated and they diversified much earlier. So they didn't go through a lot of industrialization that we had to do. Because what happened is that you either go work in a factory or you go cut cane. Those were the two in St. Kitts. But in Dominica and a lot of Windward Islands, people were farmers.
There you go.
You can't go to a farm with a lot of the base you could go to other persons with. You know?
Correct.
Just like how you say, when you're accustomed to, there's a certain level of humility you get from going, where you understand that nature is in charge, that you can't speed up your day. You can't make the sun shine and you know what I mean? There's a certain level of humility that you get. So the approach of Dominicans and Windward Islands are totally different. I went to the Dominican Creole Festival, and it just blew my mind because, like, you know, we definitely doing something wrong down here with the music festival. Like, when you go there was Creole in the back. That was totally free. And that was like the big event. Totally free, or maybe it was like a nominal fee, but everybody was there. Like, that was the one point I was in Dominica because lots of areas are inaccessible, where I got to see all my friends. Everybody was in there for that because there was that trickle-down effect. Everywhere we go, there was a DJ and a live band. I was like, where are these guys getting these musicians from? Like, everywhere there was a live band. It's like, because everybody was feeling, once Creole Festival starts or St. Lucian Jazz Festival, there's so much trickle down. It's not contained within a park. It's not just super concerts. The whole economy is impacted by it. Why? Because you're dealing with farmers, you're dealing with persons who understand money more. So they make their demands. And their legislators and their government officers understand why we can include certain things, and there's less of those big entities and those sharks swimming around trying to gobble up everything.
I am going to have us a break here. I know you guys, your minds are going like mine. But I wanted 2 comments on the Facebook page. Learning never begins until you really have to apply it. That's golden from Maisha Liebert, and Marlon Tobias said that you guys are so on the ball. And we'll go here now to a commercial break. And we'll be back.
Gift for Dad's birthday? Click. Ooh, Janice's retirement party? Click. Outfit for my girl's wedding? Click.
With TDC Airbox, you click, we ship. Register for your free U.S. mailbox today and shop all your favorite stores online. Enjoy the convenience. Free consolidation up to £10. Competitive rates. Free package tracking account with live notifications. Free delivery and, of course, excellent customer service. Visit our website at tdcairbox.com and register today. For more information, visit our offices at the C.A. Paul Industrial Site in St. Kitts and Penny's Industrial Site in Nevis. Follow us on social media at TDC Airbox. TDC Airbox. You click, we ship. Terms and conditions apply.
At The Cable, we know being local means supporting our own, and our customers deserve the best. Our customers deserve platinum. So now, all customers of The Cable qualify for our new Platinum Loyalty Card. An elite MasterCard experience that lets you support your own like never before. Instantly send money to any Platinum loyalty member at home or around the world. Shop online or in person anywhere MasterCard is accepted. Save with no interest and 0 annual fees. And the best part? If you're a cable customer, you are already pre-approved. Just visit the Cable building in Bastere or sign up online at www.thecable.net. Get your Platinum loyalty card today because you deserve Platinum. Terms and conditions apply.
People make the world go
And we're back. If you want to call us, you can call us at 466-0989, 662-0989, 762-0989, or 466-0989. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope, and we're discussing the green. We're discussing the green. It's a lot, right? Green economy. We're talking about the green economy, and these guys have been blowing our minds about all the capabilities, all the things that we should be doing, we could be doing, the things that they are doing. And we just stopped at learning from others in the region. How could we learn from others to be able to shift, have a cultural shift? How could we reduce our import bill? How could we grow more so that we could eat better quality foods and all these nice things? Now, we mentioned one of the threats to our green economy, or developing our green economy, which is the barrier of the loans. Let's talk about the other things. You mentioned already the monkeys and looking at water supply, the issues of water supply, to be able to, because hydroponics is based on, is it?
It's the art of growing plants in water.
Water,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
What else? What are the other threats? What obstacles do we face with the green economy?
It's an interest. The interest rate is one dollar, but just person don't see farming as viable unless you come in and saying that you've had like 25, 15 years and you could show a history of making profit or selling produce. If, like, let's say I'm an up-and-coming farmer and I want to go, that's still a big barrier, because what's my template?
Human resources is also a strong barrier.
Ding, 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 ding. Come closer.
It's also a barrier. You don't have a lot of people that's, like we said earlier, interested in going into farming because it's an ugly industry. So that's another important barrier to look at.
Do you think one of the issues that I have in general with industries in St. Kitts and Nevis is that we don't do industry impact assessments or industry assessments in general? So, for instance, my creative business, I have had to obviously prepare my financial statements for years to be able to demonstrate what the possibilities are. So you look at the numbers and you go, how can I improve these numbers? And you can show that the financials don't look terrible, but they could be better if I could do this, right? There aren't any. Usually, you go to other countries in the world and you could be able to access information as to how much money does agriculture or this area, this farmer, using modern technologies, could possibly make in their industry. We don't have that. Do you think that would assist us in being able to help institutions to be able to better analyze what the experience could be like for a farmer because you want to get a loan, but you also have to prove or demonstrate in some way. You never do it, eh? You never do it. Well, you have to be able to demonstrate in some way that you can pay back this loan doing what it is you say you want to do. Like, I didn't take a loan either because I couldn't go to a bank and say, well, when I start my dance business, I could make this money, but I don't know. I don't know because I never tried it, right? So it's really important. I want you guys to how could you guys enlighten us as to industry impacts? Like, what are the how is what you're doing impacting the industry and other industries?
Well, I think from my perspective, I could say that I've been a part of many businesses, many different fields. And what I think it is now doing for agriculture with the approach that I've taken is creating a recognizable pathway toward what you're discussing. I think the challenge that we've had is that a lot of those persons who make decisions in financial institutions make decisions on what's comfortable to them. And farming was never something comfortable to them. So then when a farmer steps in, you look at how he's presented. No. You look at, so it's never something that you believe in.
Unimportant cues.
Exactly. It's never something that you believe in. But then if somebody steps in, let's say, retail, there are a number of models that you can look at and you're comfortable with that because that has been seen and done and tried before and you have some metrics to assess it. So I think now giving the industry metrics now to assess, I think that's one of the important impacts and stepping in because it's not my first rodeo. I've been in business before in different avenues and this is just another one. So I know some of the ropes, I know some of the avenues. I know the barriers to entry and how to get around them. So I think that is one impact that I'm bringing to the industry.
If I could chime in here on Samuel, when it comes to impacting the industry, I think looking at you as farmers, understanding the business models behind farming is also important too, because with GrowBox, as much as it involves in the agricultural industry, it's a business model at the end of the day. It's almost like an engine, you turn it on and then you just let it go. So I think farmers understanding what their specific business model is or what their, I guess, core economic driver is as a farmer, because it's different for Samuel than it is for me.
But we don't have entrepreneurial knowledge. We don't know how to create a model. We don't know how to. This is information that we. Do we? We do. Well, no. Wait, we do. Well, you know what I mean. I'm actually talking about the regular individual who wants to do this. You tell the person to create a business plan and they look at you like, I mean, there are assistants. There are places that you can go to get assistance. But the language is difficult sometimes to understand until you actually begin doing it.
Because I think people put too much emphasis on I guess, in my opinion, the paperwork of it, in a sense. Like if you could tell a story, you could sell a business plan. If you have an idea of what you want to do, that's your business plan.
Let me jump in here.
To which institution? The
streets. You need to have a vision of where you're going. For instance, if I'm coming to you guys and I'm presenting an idea to you, we're probably not going to look on paper. We're going to talk. I mean, what's on paper needs to be there, and that's where you need to get the help in. But I think people first need to start getting comfortable talking about business and money in general. You walk into some conversations and people not comfortable talking about business and money at all.
At all.
Yeah.
At all. Which is one of the conversations you're supposed to have when you wake up off your bed. Like, what's happening with the money today? What's happening in business today? But people are so scared to talk about it. So I think also making people comfortable in these situations. So for instance, walking into the bank and asking for a loan is such a daunting task. Because you walk in there and then you have to sit in a section and everybody looks at you and then you have to explain yourself and then they ask you a ton of questions and then these questions that you can't even answer sometimes because you didn't think about it because maybe you didn't have the help. But you know where you want your business to go.
Could I step in here?
Yeah.
Yeah. You asked a really good question. Where do we go? Where do I go, like in terms of farming, if I wanted to present to the bank and get information? Well, we have our agriculture department that supposedly regulates agriculture. But a lot of times in the Caribbean, in St. Kitts, regulation is just control. But really, regulation is supposed to be monitoring and influencing, right? We don't have that. So if these persons were actually doing what regulation was and monitoring and influencing, should be able to just walk in there and get the kind of information you want. But that's just not in agriculture, that's in medicine too, where we collect a lot of information, but it's not tabulated, it's not processed to really help us. The banks now, I always liken the banks to the courts, the magistrate court. Like I would see fellas, guys, who I've never ever seen in a long sleeve shirt or with the shirts in their pants, all of a sudden got a shirt in their pants. The same thing with the bank, where you almost have to don't be yourself to get a loan, right? So instead of banks facilitate and foster, what they do is force and frustrate. Like if I have a great idea, like he says, I'm supposed to go to a bank or any lending institution and say to them, this is my idea, and they formulate it for me because they're looking at what is the risk of me giving you some money. So that doesn't mean that you may have a great idea but can't communicate it. So how do I get it? That's how it's supposed to be. It's not that, because if we don't have the banks, because remember, financing comes in 3 forms, well, 2 forms. It's either from the bank, which would be a total stranger. It always works best if your lending officer knows you. But then there's friends and family. But in the friends and family part, it's not an area that's open to most persons, because most persons don't have friends and family that have money, especially if you have a great idea. So the financing part means friends and family for those who have those with finances, and the bank. But the bank is so daunting because it's not facilitating and it's not fostering.
I guess this is where the government would have to step in if I don't know if they have projects like that under the government where they assist.
At one point there was a small business association, which I always thought was good.
Also,
but we just need, like, for me, and it goes right back to communities. If we really had existing communities, because what we're speaking about here is spoken at every rum shop, every side. Right, so that's where it started. But within our communities, we don't feel empowered and we don't see our interconnectedness. So we end up looking towards institutions. The institutions are supposed to be our last resort. We're supposed to check friends and family. Because friends and family, not having money doesn't mean it, because you could check multiple friends and family. But our sense of community, our sense of family has been slowly eroded by a lot of the sugar daddy politics, and not just sugar daddy politics, because just globalization on the whole. Because even this green, like when I read upon the green economy and the blue economy, like there are lots of we in these policies. Who are these we's? Do these we's represent us? So see me trying to push a policy on the government level and in legislature, and then we're still not valuing our farmers and our fishermen. Like, where does it go?
But that's it, and that's it. And, we're talking about agriculture. And the truth is, we talk a lot about this institution and finance and all this. How much does it cost to grow a seed? Like, really, how much does it cost to grow a seed? So the idea is really coming down to that whole miseducation, because you had institutions wanting to control everything. So it's almost like, you don't grow anything, I'll do all the growing for you. And they dominate on that convenience, because now I'm packaging it, I'm bringing it into a convenient space. But it really costs nothing to grow a seed. You split it, you drop it, it grows.
Dependent on the seed.
Wow. Wow, quite true. And that I'm thinking that takes us into the next part, new economic pathways.
That's a high point.
What? New economic pathways. How much does it cost us to begin looking at an industry that is currently underground? The cannabis industry. It's underground. I don't know why still. We know why. We know why.
Why, Jesse? Why?
No,
I don't know.
You don't know? You don't know?
No, I really don't know.
You don't know?
Why it's still... No, like, legit.
Yeah, it's just that's it.
Okay.
That's it. A lot of people don't understand how it works, right? It's new. It's new, right? It's not new. but it's
Okay.
new.
Okay.
Right? It's familiar to people that we try not to understand. Yes. We associate people who are in the cannabis industry, that underground space that we still consider very much underground, is as criminal, as doing it as rebellion, as opposed to doing it to find a means, right? It's agriculture too.
Very much so.
How could we've had is this a marijuana commission?
Yes.
Right. Where are we? This is a new it's not new economic pathway. I think we need to formalize this economic pathway. I don't want to call it new because we're treating it as something that has not existed before.
It's newly legal.
Right.
Decriminalized.
Decriminalized.
But is it? But this is the thing. Like, I'm really lost. Where is it? Like, really, where is it?
Help us. Where is it?
All right. Where is it? All right. Let's kind of start from the beginning, and this is just my perspective, right? This could be challenging. In fact, I would love for it to be challenged. When did marijuana start here in St. Kitts? Because even before its criminalization in the U.S., it was going here in St. Kitts. It was brought in by most of the indentured Indian servants after the time, because that's what they did in India. The plant actually originated up in those hemispheres. And they brought it here and they grew it for years unchallenged, perfected it. It morphed, because at that time you're not doing any cloning. It's purely by seeds. So those plants grew here within the West Indies. A very potent, when I say potent sativa, I don't mean potent in the American perspective, as in good buds and high THC content. A very balanced plant. I think it's a plant that you could ascribe all this reggae and calypso to, because most of the guys that were smoking it is who wrote these songs and did the music. The same as in the States, all the jazz musicians would tell you that's what they did. So that's where it started. It was criminalized right after that big social movement in the States. A lot of it went underground, like you said. But that was underground here in St. Kitts and mainly indoors in the US. And that's one of the deep, dark secrets of cannabis right now. Most of the person that know the most about marijuana is who were growing it indoors during those decades, and they perfected it. So even now, the marijuana industry as it stands, nearly all the biggest growers are going indoors. But when they go indoors, there's lots of artificial lighting. And so it's going to have a big carbon footprint. That's inevitable, and that's one of the... So even though we think it's natural, it's great, what these guys are, they're geared towards profit, and profit means I want to control light, humidity, temperature to get the best possible flower. Not plant, flower, because that's, in the end, that's what they want. But that shouldn't be the way we're supposed to be going at it. In fact, I have a colleague in Jamaica, and for him, he wants that land race, that sativa that was here before, that inspired Bob and all the rest. He wants to start going, he's been going around the Caribbean and collecting it already. So it's almost going to be like all those unique model cars, Ford cars from back in the day, that keep adding value and increasing in price over the years, even getting older and all the same way, because they're going to become a point where all the guys are the forerunners, Canada, the US, Israel, that even when we open up, even when we come out to the dark ages, and whatever prime minister at the point that we have decides that we're going to fully decriminalize this or make it legal, we're going to be too late. There's nobody that's going to make humongous amounts of money. In fact, most of the politicians throughout the Caribbean, what they're waiting on is for some big white investor to come in. And I think that's a spit in the face of more of the generations and generations of persons who've been incarcerated over the years.
That's why licenses are so
for non-violent crimes, right? That's why the license in the end, and we've seen the model in a place like Jamaica, whose weed was world-renowned. Like, even though they were doing whatever, they had all the science and all the money and all the investments in places like California, and people still were quarreling and clamoring for Jamaican weed because of what? It's from Jamaica, it's Jamaican people, it's reggae, it's all those vibes. So really, we in the Caribbean have to look towards that if we really want to make money off of marijuana and the cannabis industry. It has to be that kind of boutique manner. But that's not even my aim, or that's not what I want to see. I want a decriminalization. I want persons who've been who is currently serving crime for non-violent issues with that drug to be freed up. That's what I want. I want the Rasta liberty that I grew up on, that if you come, you get a bash. And I share with you. If I got a big draw, I share it with you. That's what the plant has always been about, and that's what I saw growing up, and that's what it needs to go back to. Not this thing where you, like... So, and for me, for somebody from the area that I'm from, I know it's always been used as an excuse, especially by lazy policing, because we really have some good police, but we have some lazy police. That now, if I want 3 arrests, I could just go across Matnet and pick up somebody. I must find somebody with a spliff. Because more weed, more cocaine, more of all illicit drugs can be found in other areas, upscale areas, student areas, than in Matnet and Newtown. And we know these to be truths. So, where are we? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm still, where are we in St. Kitts? Is it decriminalized? Is it not? Is it?
On May 3rd, 2019, well, let me go back before that, because on February 20th, 2019, Prime Minister Timothy Harris announced that that his cabinet had accepted the unanimous recommendations from the National Cannabis Commission and introduced legislation to legalize medicinal cannabis and decriminalize recreational use for persons over the age of 18. Individuals found with under 15 grams of cannabis or growing less than 5 plants would only receive a ticket.
So
then
I
on
heard
May 3rd,
okay,
2019, High Court Judge Eddie Ventos ruled that the Rastafarians and other adults over the age of 18 can use, possess, and cultivate cannabis in private, and that the government has 90 days to change the cannabis laws in the country.
Okay.
So they decriminalize 15 grams of cannabis, punishable by a $50 fine if it's more than that.
So they have done that.
As far as I know.
Because
Just
in that
nobody
it
has
said
actually challenged it.
will, and then it gave 90 days, but...
I think it's in a legal, and this is my perspective, it's in a legal gray area that really just has to be challenged. And somebody would have to be arrested for that and say, all right, no, I have my 5 plants up.
Order from the court, they should have done it.
Oh, should have, okay.
The question is, did they do it?
No,
Yeah.
So again, we're very much in
and this is my thing, right? Because I'm thinking of it and I'm looking at the situation and we're talking about, because I've heard all the hoop about going into the cannabis industry, but then the actions nationally don't seem like that's where we're going.
No. And this notion that people are going to become filthy rich or really make a lot of money isn't going to happen. What's going to happen is just like any other commodity when it becomes legal. It then comes to who is the best at selling it, who has the best quality. So who's going to, most persons who have disposable income are just going to import their stuff. Because they're going to want trendy weed. They're going to want the latest weed in its latest form.
Yeah.
And then, so we can just go back to the traditional users. And lots more persons are going to actually be growing it in the back of the yards or growing it.
But that's the part to me that I am more concerned about. Like the persons who make a whole lot of money, okay, fine, great for you. But their families now and then let's look at the pandemic. There's not as many jobs as there were before.
Right.
Period, hands down. There are families who worked out, well, I could do 5 plants, maybe I could make a little something and keep my family sustained. And then the police will come and pull those 5 plants out. What are the options? So are you allowing me to grow 5 plants, make a little something to raise my family? Or do you have another job for me to do? Or should I find something else?
Is that a compassion plea?
No, it's really from a point of, and I'll use the word ignorance in its truest sense, like I really don't understand it. Because there's so many dynamic pieces that you have people who looking for a way to feed their family. You have these legislations floating around and being bantered around in the public when convenient, but then there's nothing that pins all of it together.
Substance, it lacks substance.
Nothing that's pinning all of it together, yet people are suffering and trying to go by what the legislation dictated in the media and then still being punished for it. I really don't understand it. I'm lost, totally.
From my understanding, I think it's more, the bills were passing more for the growing personally, not selling. of it. So yeah, I could go 5 plants at home for me and my family, but by the time I start to sell that somewhere else, now I'm stepping into a different realm, I assume, and I don't think that realm is being talked about.
Well, you see, but that's the ambiguity of the legislation if it just states 5 plants, because I could have 5 small plants, I could have 5 big plants.
5 massive plants.
Right, and if I have 5 massive plants, who stops me from
sharing?
From sharing. Because why wouldn't I want to start a business called Ganja Grow Box?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is it. And if that's where we're going, why are we now punishing people who are practicing? If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think we should, the island itself, because as we know, we're way behind. Some people think we're 10, but we're hundreds of years behind anywhere we need to be with this cannabis industry here on the island. And I think if we really want to make some headway with it, like you was talking about earlier, understanding the landway strands on the island, because the landway strands is where everything comes from. Everything. I would like to see things be put in place for the farmers that grow in landway strands here, be protected. Somewhere for them to even own the ownership of the rights, even like plant testing, simple as plant testing. Mm-hmm. You can't test plants here. You can't do it. You can't know what's in the plants from a medical perspective. You just don't know. And they have people here growing some potent strains. And when I say potent strains, we're not just talking about the ones that just get you stoned. We're talking about the strains that actually provide medical benefit to people. And farmers, they have no way of testing that. They have no way of, as you would say, patenting and that for themselves. If you're really talking about making money, serious money in the cannabis industry, coming from an island where we're already behind, is patenting.
Quality assurance.
Patenting the genetics on the island.
Is it that can be tough because, and again, I like to trace everything back to history. Like historically, like you look at a place like Jamaica, and they had a cockpit country, so which enabled them to Africans that came right off the slave ships could just revolt and go right up and join these groups. So a lot of their African cultures were retained. St. Kitts was not like that. Like I could remember one, I can't even remember her name, infamous slave rebel that had escaped. But the same thing happens because we're such a small area and we're so influenced by trends. A lot of those landmasses are not here. People have just moved on to the next best thing. Yeah. Like for example, like the persons who do important indoor strains, and that means everything has to be imported. That means a huge electricity bill. When we have a sun that provides like the most potent lighting ever. Again, like I said, that's a trend that started in the US as well, where the major part of the cannabis industry is doing indoors.
All right, we have a caller. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, greetings to all.
Greetings, sir.
Greetings.
We just called to give thanks for the reasoning, you know? Give thanks for the reasoning and all the information that is flowing, you know? Give thanks.
Thank you so much for calling.
Thank you.
Somebody calling just to give thanks.
Yes.
That has to be a Rasta.
I know.
So there was the act passing.
Borrow my mic.
Sorry. So there was the Cannabis Act passed in 2020. I'm seeing it's allowed for religious purposes and medical purposes. So that's it.
Does that bill include a licensing? Because I think there's a licensing authority.
A lot of it is about the licensing authority.
Is that set up? Is that set up?
Yeah, it still requires regulations. So there's still a lot of work to be done. But 2020, there's a Cannabis Act. So at least that was passed. But whether or not it's consistent with the judgment of Eddie Ventos will require some more thought there. But yeah.
And isn't what I find fundamentally interesting is that, like in every society where you go, there are cannabis smokers. But who've been carrying the vanguard has always been, at least here in St. Kitts, has been the Rastafarian. So the highest rate of arrest, like just arrest on site. In some jurisdictions, they were even shot on site. Like, so when you hear people, Rasta saying that we have to go to Babylon, is because it wasn't because we just don't want to be with you people, you know. It's like these people like hated you and hunted you. So they stayed on the vanguard, and it took a Rasta again to challenge the court and take this to the level that it is again. And at the same time, there's still the group that's suffering the most.
But this is it. And like I said, it's just confusing. Very. Very.
Go ahead.
I'm really here supposed to be monitoring the page, but I can't help it. But
it's infectious discussion.
The model shows you that all our countries interested in is collecting licensing fees. They expect persons to come in and do the work, and we want to be able to say, well, in order for you to come in and do the work, you have to pay us some money. So that really is the basis that the government has set up. Yeah, just to be able to say, I give you a certificate that tells you're able to do that. That really is the only scope that we see in for the cannabis industry here, licensing fees, and that's it. And therefore it's going to have to be led by persons who see more scope. So because as far as I think, in my opinion, as far as the government sees, that's all it's able to get from that industry.
It also allows these persons to reference and cross-check and analyze the persons coming in, because who's going to come in but a big, heavy investor?
Because because I'm listening to Gian, licensing fees. I'm like, you have local growers, why not just give them the licensing fee? But you're not, because you're waiting for something.
With all the knowledge, with all the traditions,
I mean,
that has been suffering for over the years. Like, how do you change? How does it become a paradigm shift if you're just collecting big, exorbitant fees? How?
Well, it comes down to, again, a barrier. Is it that we're saying that creates a barrier to that economic pathway? We're not using the word new.
No, what I'm saying, what a fundamental part of it is that because it's so vague, because it's so ambiguous, like, for example, we talk about ingenuity and about upstarts and about entrepreneurship. How do you chart a clear way forward if everything is so grey and unrealistic to you and still out there? You don't know what's legal and what's not. How do you chart the way forward? For somebody that says, all right, this is my passion, I'm really a big grower of marijuana, but I want to come out to the darkness, I don't want to do it illegally. How do you chart your way forward if it's not clear? And you have no notion of when it's going to be clear to you.
Do you think that Zen, I would like you to speak. Go ahead, darling, go ahead. I would love if you speak. Come closer, yeah.
I always got a problem being close. I guess in that sense, in terms of like chatting away, like if I know, for instance, all I could get is a slap on the wrist for doing a particular activity in this sense, then even though it's a great ocean that we're sailing in right now, I know we could sail in the ocean, right? We could sail in the ocean, and when I probably step outside the ocean, slap on the wrist, and then go back in. So when it comes to chartering that way forward, I think you just gotta charter it. Like, we got people around here selling marijuana from since I was a kid. Like, these are the people we need to sit down and talk to understand, like in terms of like chartering businesses in that way. I don't think there's ever gonna be a time where it's clearly painted. It's never going to be clearly painted, especially with such a new industry, because then you're going to have to put these regulations in place. You're going to have committees to monitor these regulations. After a while, you're going to have committees to assess these regulations and see if it's even feasible for the island to be growing cannabis on an export level scale.
I think we have a caller.
We won't, because like I said,
we have a caller. Good afternoon, caller.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dale.
Yeah. I wanna give my little 2 cents to the youth.
Go ahead. Go right ahead.
Yes. Good afternoon, Gian.
Good afternoon, Gian.
And the rest youths around the table.
Okay.
A very thoughtful conversation. It's very catchy. To the youngster there who just talk about the Rastaman. You had to, we run from Babylon and had to go to the mountain, you know, and they come to the mountain, come back us off and all for this thing, you know. You understand? And the question of the license, No big valet man won't come in sink it and run no marijuana trade here, you know. Otherwise, they know his problem. The amount of blows Rasta man get in this country for this thing. And now we getting somewhere with it. No big dollar man won't come here. So the politicians them better understand that loud and clear. That we're not gonna dress back and allow no white people to come think it and control the marijuana trade. As the youngest person around the table just said there, that we supposed to come out and control the market. And we will like you all to, as youngsters to come in the society and have a little chat with we, the elder Rastaman them around back here. Come ahead, there's a lot to learn. Have a good day, Jan, and all the youngsters.
Jan, man, you're a big fan.
I know. But yeah, I think, and this conversation is so valid. And one of my biggest thing why I said all what I said, because I'm really, really, really concerned. Because just this morning I was reading some Facebook posts and I saw some posts about police pulling weed, right? And I'm like, why no?
Why still?
Yeah, why still? Why no? Like,
there hasn't been a change. There is no change.
I've been one.
But this is it. This is why it's confusing to me. Like, why no? Why still?
It hasn't been a change, really. I think one of the things, what keeps running through my mind right now is, in order for us to progress, I think we're going to have to take the Netflix approach. And why I say the Netflix approach is that there are certain themes that it is clear that Netflix is trying to promote. They're in every single movie, even when there's no need for them to be in the movie. But it just comes a point where sometimes you watch a movie, before you might have watched a movie and thought, oh, this is nasty, or oh, this is, too difficult, or why are they pushing this in my face? And then you just realize after you continue watching it that one day it just doesn't bother you anymore because they've normalized it. Mm-hmm. It's constantly in our faces to the point where it just becomes normal. And if we want to see this kind of innovative push and these changes that we really want to see happen in St. Kitts and Nevis, we're just going to have to normalize it by promoting the people and the causes that we really want to see. So we're gonna have to be promoting Growbox every chance we get, and people like Growbox and Montrevil Farms and showing people these things are possible. It's going to require Desi and Zen to sit down and tell people, this is exactly how I started a business without going for a loan. Mm-hmm. Without, may want to tell me business, next thing they're going to say I got money. And, you're going to have to normalize the kind of activity that we want to see by promoting it constantly.
I mean, I agree. There's a lot of work to be done, and I have a very radical thought because throughout this entire discussion, I'm wondering, who do we really need to educate as it relates to the cannabis industry? I don't think it's the people on the ground. I don't think it's me and you. I think it's the people up top. The people, well, me and you, yes, but there's so much unnecessary red tape that exists because I think we're looking at it from a hazard perspective. How is it going to affect our society when it actually, and because we're talking about the green economy, a lot of people use cannabis to improve their well-being. Like some people use it to relax them recreationally. Some people use it to help with pain. Some people use it as a sleeping drug because they're not going to take a pill, right? They just do some herb tea and they just... it helps. It helps a lot. How we need to have that very simple yet impactful conversation at the top, because it seems as though we're approaching it from a very hazardous perspective. Like how I don't know how else to put it. I am literally lost for words because it's everybody else is doing it. And it's unfortunate that even Dr. Alexander said it. He said that we will not be able to profit from it. We're talking about the green economy. That means that this although relevant, we're having a discussion about something that may never ever be able to benefit us when it should or when it could, because of the expansive use. I mean, we can't even do an impact assessment. We talk about impact assessments not being done in industries. But if we get these things done, we'd be able to actually see on paper, since you need proof on paper, how impactful or how some of these activities that we're participating in on a day-to-day basis is actually making some people money or benefiting or improving the quality of lives of individuals. It's 5-2. Actually, well, yes. So we're gonna start the wrap up here, and I'm gonna do something. Take a page from Gian's book from last week when she asked the panelists to rate where we are in the digital economy last week. So we're gonna do it for the green economy, starting with
1 to 10.
Yes, from 1 to 10, with 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. Where do you think we are? And it's very quickly.
10 being all of the possible opportunities.
Okay.
Yes.
And I think one of your panelists last week separated it too, so I'm going to separate it. Like in the overall green economy, I can't go any further than the stats that Sam had presented, in that if it's 15%, then I have to rate it as a 1.5.
Oh.
Well, he said it, remember, in practice it's less than 10. So.
Oh, okay, balance. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and make it 1.5. In terms of cannabis now, because that's the aspect of the green industry that I would like to think that I'm overseeing. Like I said, and I want to edit. I didn't say that it won't be profitable. It's not going to be everybody running to the bank, because first of all, the banks won't even be giving you loans or taking your ganja money. But what I'm saying is that I've already seen a change, and sometimes you see it in these big stars in the US, that you hear these unheard of entities in medicine that the child all of a sudden is suffering from, and then it becomes news, and then everybody's aware of it, and then you see almost like an awakening. I think more of the cannabis users need to come out, like Gian says, and just normalize it, because a lot of the stereotypes exist because a lot of us are being fake, like in that we would go on and bash cannabis, we'd go on and not say things about cannabis, and we know it improves our overall lives, and we because there are repercussions, we don't speak of it, but for a lot of persons, it's just stereotyped. So like Gian, instead of coming on programs and talking about what's not being done, what could be done, we really should talk about the benefits of it. They are about cannabis wellness and some of the good things and the advantages of using it, and some of the disadvantages too, because sometimes we like to speak of it as if like it's a spiritual gift from God that has no bad, but it does. Mm-hmm. So in my sum up, again, so I'd give that on 10, I'd give it a 3. I give it a 3 because there's so much more that could happen, and it has to come from a legislative standpoint, because there's only so much we could do, right? And again, that's the easiest part, because I think all our politicians should know. I think everybody in leadership positions should know. Like I remember the first time understanding for the very first time in my fullness, like there's nothing could be wrong about this, because everybody that I knew that smoked cannabis, some of the best persons I knew, some of the persons that were the best to me were smokers of cannabis, and I'm like, no, it can't be that bad. Like that was my realization coming out of a whole culture of stereotyping it and everybody telling you not smoking. And I'm talking about this is like maybe 21 and living in Market Street at night and not smoking.
And you see, we're talking about smoking, and there are now new ways to consume cannabis without
all the ways that we just know about.
Yeah. All ways, but new ways. I mean, modernized. They've modernized it in many ways. Yes, trendier ways. So it's not just smoking. Yeah, there are things that we can consider. I'm gonna go to Samal. Yes, give me your rating.
No, that one is a tough one, right? But I would give it Although we only produce less than 10%, and even in cannabis, I think we're far behind where we should be. I would still give it a 5 or 6 on 10, and I'll tell you why. And Gian really mentioned it. The biggest barrier we have is the easiest part of the process. Legislation. We have just about everything else. You see, we clear that barrier, we off to running start. Yes.
Good call.
Facts. I guess for me, I would rate them.
Zen, come.
Mike averse.
I guess for me, I would rate them. When it comes to the agriculture, in terms of like farming for fresh produce, I'll rate that like an 8, 9. Because as we piggybacked on earlier, the 90% that nobody's trying to tap into when it comes to import food, that's a big market for people here to gobble up.
Right.
That's major.
Right.
When it comes to the cannabis industry, that's a very interesting one, because I'll give that a 10. Because for me,
10 on 10?
10 on 10.
Oh, okay.
10 on 10. Minus the legislation, everything we need here to make the island like a booming cannabis haven, in a sense, like Jamaica, is right here. Everything we need, the knowledge, the manpower, everything we need to do that is right here.
Yeah, and
the legislation is just...
I agree. I agree, because one of the... Go ahead.
I think Zen is looking more in the future, whereas Garfield is looking at now. But the part about the legislation, I don't understand why we just can't treat cannabis the way we treat alcohol. It is the same treatment, really, because alcohol has its benefits and it has, you know, the bad part of it as well. So the same way we treat alcohol in the law, we treat cannabis in the law. And the story
It's really
is done.
that simple. It's that simple.
And the story is done. That's it.
All the regulations.
Same.
All the regulations the same way, because it's even a more dangerous product.
Not regulated.
Right. But that's what happened. That those regulations were put in place during a different paradigm. At that point, it needed to be enforced. That's why you see the drunken man them go on the side of the rum shop on a Sunday, because it was outlawed and you only could sell through a little window. And then later on, people just start policing it. The same thing happens in Holland. A lot of the stuff there is not that it's legal. It's just not policed or regulated.
All right, so guys, it's actually 2:00. Can't say much now, but we have to wrap up here. It was a pleasure having these, I'm going to call all of them young men.
Why wouldn't you?
Thank you so much, Dr. Garfield Alexander, Zen Hector of Growbox, and Samuel Doggins of Montrevil Farms. It was really a pleasure having you guys today. And we definitely had a rounded discussion about the green economy. I am going to be very excited about putting the package of this together, because we hope to have a culmination of all our discussions on May 20th of May 20th, so that we could present what we spoke about and then talk about moving forward with these ideas, right? It was a really healthy discussion. Thank you to WinFM for having us, for partnering with us. Our next discussion will be on May 8th, and we're going to be talking about my favorite, the orange economy, arts, entertainment, and culture. Gian is, ready. She's definitely ready for that one. We promise to have another exciting group of panelists. Thank you again to Mr. Glenn Gishad from this morning. It was a pleasure being here with you guys today. And thank you. We're out. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Buying your medication is easy with City Drugstore's curbside pickup. WhatsApp our certified pharmacist at 662-8769 with your requests. For prescriptions, take a click.